board meeting. First thing is set adjust agenda. Does anybody have anything they want to add or change on the agenda?
Nope.
All right.
Nothing from town manager's office.
Let's roll. Next is select board to approve minutes from last time, which was October the 15th. Does anybody have any changes? I had one small thing that's probably not worth changing, but it says say road foreman report given by Eric Remick. I did read it, but I feel like it wasn't exact, but whatever. It does say then the next line that Tom provided a report earlier.
I move that we accept the minutes with the edit.
How are we editing it?
With your edit? Do you want to change that?
How about just read by instead of given
Okay.
by? Is that okay?
Yes.
All right.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Nope.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion passes, minutes are approved. Next, communication from the audience. A bit thin on the ground here for audience tonight. Next, town manager's report. Sean, do you want to tell us what you guys have been up to?
Absolutely. So we did host Vermont, New Hampshire USDA State Director and a couple of other high-level officials a couple weeks back now. They were doing a tour of a handful of Vermont communities to just review and look at some of the USDA improvements and how Hardwick's working with that funding to improve the community. So Eric was involved with that. Lisa at Judavine Library was involved, and we had John Ramsey from Center for Ag Economy involved as well. They went really well. So it was really nice to have them in town, and they really appreciated the opportunity to see the improvements that we are making with support from that office. Have completed a walkthrough on the Creamery LVRT project. This is, of course, the section by the town garage from North Main up to Slap Hill. And we're just one outstanding item there. V-Trans, Capital Earth Moving, Summit Engineering, DuBois & King as our on-site engineer, resident engineers, if you will. Just one thing outstanding right now, and that's lights in the parking area that's opposite the town garage. So that's in the works for this next week. With that done, we'll be at substantial completion. So that's been, we continue to get positive feedback from many different folks using that. To include the day we were doing the walk, we had a half a dozen people stop and say, "Are you guys involved with this project?" And thank you, this is awesome. So it was really interesting how we're doing a substantial walkthrough and we get that feedback right in the field. So coming along really nicely on, we'll be done in that section. And as a friendly reminder, V-Trans taking this over, if you will, to do remaining work on other sections with the intent that the entire 93 miles will be done in the next 2-year period. Ongoing communications and research for the River Street Highway right-of-way issue, and we'll talk about that later this evening. Have been, last week, provided administrative processing support to Allison Lowe from Northeast Vermont Development Association, our regional planning commission support entity, put together a $1 million grant request for Northern Borders NBRC, Northern Border Regional Commission, for the Yellow Barn project. So that has been submitted, and the planning team continues to work on securing additional financing, getting details in order, with the intent to be in a groundbreaking phase the back half of 2021. So we're doing our best to keep that thing moving forward. Eric's involved with that, of course, many other planning partners, including tenants in the facility. So we continue to make progress and keeping focused on getting to a groundbreaking and occupancy. Did some review work of budget information with Casey and bouncing things off department heads, so we'll obviously talk about budget later in the meeting. Reviewed the locations of where we can add, have additional LED crosswalk devices in the downtown area. Tom and I looked at this. In case the public is not aware, we got 2 LED crosswalk devices per some ongoing conversations and work from the Pedestrian and Traffic Safety Task Force group. We got 2 devices. They now are not paired. What that means is they are not set on the same crosswalk. They're basically set at different locations. on the Perking Street side. And what we're doing, just to get ourselves in a position to, if we want to pair them up, or if the select board makes a determination we want to add additional devices, it's substantial cost on these items. A pair is about $7,000. So what we're doing in the interim, Tom and I looked at where we're going to be, where we could pair these things up. So the end point on this is we'll have bases prepared opposite where the crosswalks are now, and then we'll also have our bases in place at the crossing coming off the pedestrian bridge, so that if we want to pair them up, if we want to add devices, we have the opportunity to be able to do this moving forward. So I think the weather's going to cooperate, and if I'm not mistaken, Tom and the crew will be working on this coming week. We're going to have the weather to be able to cooperate. Did contact Preservation Trust of Vermont just to check on the status of the second inspection report for the pedestrian bridge. The feedback I got from the engineer today was we anticipate getting that report early next week. Gearing up for winter operations to include just checking our heat systems, getting things transitioned over with furnaces and heat systems as an example. That's some of that work commenced yesterday. We'll get it buttoned up with our plumber next week, so everything's coming together nicely for the transition into the next season. We are receiving requests for qualifications information from PE professional engineering firms for the wastewater system design project. The RFQs will be reviewed tomorrow afternoon, and then we'll be making some determinations how we proceed with firm rankings and advancing the planning stages of the project. We've got interviews lined up this next week for the community development coordinator position. Those are going to be Zoom based, so we're making progress there. We are in the office now, town manager's office. I'm looking over reviewing grant opportunities with VTrans for transportation alternative grants, potential options for funding some of the improvements that actually have been identified as a part of the pedestrian and traffic safety task force work, so we can just improve pedestrian and bicycle safety. So that's somewhat of a tight timeline, but I'm trying to just figure out, can we work in a few of those things that were identified in that pedestrian and traffic safety task force item, potentially get them paid out through this grant. So kind of honed in on, maybe we have like the green bike path lane getting us from the LVRT to downtown, and then we can work on some other things as opportunities here. So I'll evaluate this next week, and then we can see what we got for scope opportunities. Two final things, getting some basic scope information in order with for a USDA Community Facilities Grant application. When USDA was in town, I mentioned to them we'd be interested in getting Community Facilities Grant for improvements to the Public Works Garage facility. So they responded to that positively. So we're investigating this. Tom and I have had some basic conversations. We're going to be, this is due in December, so it's something we're going to start to hone in on here this next week period. And let's see, we did renew, Townhouse Lease for the next 3-year period with NEK Art. So that's Sherry's work. She's a director and leader there, so appreciate that, and appreciate the ongoing work of the directors at NEK Arts. We've got a really nice facility there, so that's nice to be able to keep that advancing. The other thing I was going to mention, it's not noted here as a last item, is we did launch a one-stop shop for the board, committee, trustee, commissioner. I think that's the 4 category assignments for all of the town delegated committees. That is active on the website now. If you go to the town website, you hit government, you'll see boards and committees come up, and it's added as the first bullet point item. You can select that point, and then you'll see a comprehensive list of all of our town board, committee, trustee, commissioner assignments, alphabetized, the detail of lengths of terms where pertinent, and then the expiration date. So that's up.
Great.
9 minutes, Chief.
I have a few questions, though. I don't know if others.
Oh, here it is, questions.
Yeah, you go.
So I just have a question about the community development coordinator position and the Zoom meetings. Are you sitting in on those, or are we?
That
do
was,
we
that was
get-
one of my questions too. Who's,
Myself,
the
Amanda, and
process?
Casey are assigned as of now for doing the interview phase. They're next Tuesday. If any select board member wants to be a part of that, you're welcome. We can get you in the game.
No, well, I just wonder what the process is like. Usually we have at least one person from the select board that is involved in hiring stuff.
Not
but
necessarily.
I don't know.
It depends on the position.
Yeah,
does, but we have, sometimes in the past had select board, just a member on a committee, just to have a connection.
So recognizing it's tight on the timeline, we can offer that up. If anybody is interested in doing that, it's going to be this next Tuesday. We're getting them lined up for. That may be too aggressive, and my apologies if I had some oversight on this. I was just trying to keep it moving.
no, or whether part of the process would be you guys would do that, and then you'd make recommendations, and then we'd get an opportunity before. I didn't really know what that process was gonna be.
So I believe it's I think the way it works is the town manager hires and reviews, and everything's responsible for managing people, and including this new position. But just in the past, whenever there's, we've often had a select board member
Yeah.
sit in on
I'm just
interviews,
remembering when we hired Casey and,
Yeah,
yeah,
and others before.
yeah,
Yep,
So,
so
that's
I think
okay.
that way, it's a good way to get select board input, even though really the decision is with the town manager.
right.
Is Tuesday too aggressive? I mean,
If you've already set it up, I think you should carry on, but.
How many applicants are there?
we're going to interview 3 people. To answer your question, which surprised me a bit, there wasn't many more applicants than that. But we've got 3 folks that they appear to have decent qualifications. So if anybody is interested in jumping in, we've got 45-minute slots. There's going to be 3 of them on Tuesday. So recognizing that short notice, if you want me to get somebody in the game at the select board level, just tell me and we'll keep them on the Zoom invites. Otherwise, we'll just keep it moving and then follow up before we make a determination.
Anybody?
Yeah, I don't know what to, I'd have to look at and see what's happening on Tuesday, but that's fine.
I think my Tuesday is a little tight, but does anybody else have interest in time?
I might be able to, but I might not, so I can get back.
We could assign Wiz.
That sounds good, yeah.
Yeah, Wiz will be there.
On Zoom? Come on. I know how she likes Zoom.
I maybe can, so if you send me the info, then I can try to do it,
Yeah?
yeah.
Sean, if you want to just email the times, I might be able to help with one, or not help, be there for 1 or 2. But if that's not helpful, then that's okay.
I don't know, it seems to me that, it might be, but also it seems like it's probably most useful if somebody can sit through all of them and provide, sit through a discussion afterwards of what do you think and all that.
Yeah, I think I can.
Sean, you got that?
Yeah, my 2 cents is all or nothing. It's
Yeah.
kind of tricky if you're just listening to one candidate. Just
Right.
that's
It's hard to
just for
provide,
hiring
hard to
procedures.
provide
right?
comparisons, right?
Yeah. So I'll update Sherry.
Awesome.
Okay.
I had a similar question for the
This time does not count toward my time.
the RFQ for the PE firms that
Yes.
are being reviewed tomorrow is that being reviewed with Alderson Elliott or who's?
No,
Yeah.
they are not.
Oh, okay.
They aren't reviewers because they are also candidates. Or
Okay.
They've also submitted RFQs.
Okay,
We do have a select board member on that committee.
who's that?
Lucian.
Lucian, okay, got it.
So you at least got
Which
that
I
one.
probably should have known, but I didn't.
No, you did, but it was a long time ago when I updated that he had volunteered.
On the NEK Arts lease for the townhouse, does select board need to sign that?
No,
it's
not
just
based
with
on the last
town
one.
manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crosswalk devices, we don't have that on
Did I
our
miss that on the agenda?
agenda, do we, or do we not?
No, okay.
We need to add that.
So since we are talking, since it came up, and so Tom, you think you guys can add the whatever you need in the ground
Yeah,
to
the anchors, yeah.
anchors. So,
Do you want me to just broach into this as
Yep,
part of my report?
yep,
So as a part of
yep.
my report recognizing we had, I was thinking we were maybe getting 2 pairs, we didn't. So the issue that is just, as I iterated prior, we've got basically 2 devices. I think going into it, when it was discussed, 6 weeks ago now, I think everybody assumed that we were gonna have 2 complete pairs. What that means is you'd have push button LED signal on each side of the crosswalk. So in effect, you got 4 independent devices paired up. So the way we have them right now, of course, is on the traffic side of South Main. And I got thinking about this after the last round of discussions on the subject, recognizing it wasn't ideal. Given the cost, it's not anything that the town manager can authorize because it's greater than $5,000. The point is this, if we have this significant concern at this phase, it's not really a good effort. One of the options is to add, get 2 additional devices. We also have the option with what we've talked about on the bases, we could pair up the 2 we've got. So, these are pretty expensive devices. $7,130 is actually the tally, not 7,000, for the 2 that we've already obtained. So, it's select board's prerogative, if you want to go with the 2 we've got for now, or if we want to proceed on some others. It is a lot of money in the end. And maybe this is something we work in as a part of, maybe I can work into the alternative transportation grant as an option. So I can't make the call on this to add these additional
Right,
devices.
so what do people think?
Well, that's my feeling is that we don't really know if it's gonna solve a problem. So I feel like since we've already spent actually more than we discussed on them, we thought, my memory is that we thought we were gonna spend 5,000 and get 2 sidewalks covered with 4 devices. And we ended up spending whatever, 7, which is fine. But I kind of feel like it'd be good to try these out, see if they work, see if they, you try a new thing and you never know, little things come up that don't go as you think. And because it is a bunch of money, let's see if they work as they are. If they're not working as they are, let's try pairing them up. And then once we kind of figure out whether we think that's a good thing or not, then I'd be, if it is working, then it's definitely worth it. But if it's not working, then I think we'd know that, hopefully, given some time down the road. That would be my take on it.
Okay, that's my feeling too.
If I can offer a suggestion, it's worth a whole lot, but without doing, I don't think you're gonna know whether they work completely without doing the rest of the work of expanding your site zones, eliminating some parking and site zones here. So, the way I look at it, I would say that it might help a little, but you're not solving the overall problem because you're not doing the whole thing of expanding the site. One of the biggest issues that I see there, on a regular basis, whether I'm in my own vehicle or a cruiser, is the sight lines. You cannot see people standing there. The sight lines are probably the biggest issue that I see. Lights are great, but people don't understand why the lights are flashing if they can't see somebody standing. So,
You can on one side,
right,
but the other side by the river.
on the non-parking side, you gotta see somebody, but on the parking side, you
Yeah.
can't. So it's just an opinion, but it is somewhat of an educated opinion from what we're
Well,
seeing.
and that is part of the recommendations
Right,
that
yeah.
came through. I'd just love to see the 2 that we have paired up so that they're actually talking to each other. Because I haven't seen people using them as often. I mean, I see people.
They're not using them.
They don't
They sat down
understand
there.
because you're either on one side and you don't have one, or you're on the side that has one and you're not sure. Yeah, no, I think that it seems like they're meant
So-
to be used
When we
together.
were installing them, Sherry, we had people walk up, said they will not use it, they just soon walk out there, look around, and then wave to people, and then cross the road.
Well, we can't help that,
you
but
know.
I don't think that and a couple of times I've been standing there on the sidewalk and there's a truck that's higher than the than where the light is, you know? So if it's only on one side, I think that if they're at least flashing on both sides, that they're potentially more useful. I don't know, the one in Montpelier works really well and people do use it. It's on a busy street and yeah.
So it sounds like, I mean, what I'm hearing is that we don't want to scrounge around to find money to buy another set right now because we don't really know how it's working, but it would probably be useful to try to pair them up. And pairing them up means pairing them up by Yummy Walk?
I mean, I think that would be up to Tom and Sean and the planning commission reports based on what.
To say what, where?
Well, yeah.
Where is the most need? I mean, we had somebody be hit on the.
Yeah, we recommended 2 different spots. The task force recommended 2 spots because we thought we were getting 2 sets. 2 places, the crosswalk that's at the swinging bridge and in front of the co-op, and then the one that one of them is at down on coming across to the laundromat. So I guess I'd be inclined to say that we would at least get them together on one by either moving both of them to that swinging bridge co-op crossing or bringing one down to the other side by the laundromat.
I was thinking the swinging bridge, since it's not a thing right now, it might be better to put it down to the laundromat. But I'm not down there.
That's very possible. I mean, people are still crossing there all the time, but it's the same thing. I mean, you know, people are crossing on all those crosswalks.
Yeah, okay, so I don't have a strong.
And not on the crosswalks too.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Well, that is an interesting thing, you know.
They do that
The people
as
that get
well.
hit were in crosswalks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the jaywalkers haven't gotten hit. I mean, maybe just chance, but I'm just saying that people might pay more attention than jaywalking.
What are you saying, Lucia? It's safer to cross outside the crosswalk?
You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hard to say, but, yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing we
I
can do
mean,
with
no
that.
matter, yeah, I mean, pedestrians have the right of way either way, but it doesn't save
Yes,
them.
clearly.
None of it saves them.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd be inclined to either get near the blinking light or at the village laundromat. And I, just with the pedestrian bridge being down right now, I mean, it's tricky. Each of these gets used, right? We know this, each of the 3 crosswalks, but we
Well,
also had an incident at
Yeah.
the blinking light last summer.
5, 7, whatever it is. Yeah, I think I mean, the kids coming up to school, that thing, the one by the laundromat seems like it's, I don't know.
That one already has a base there too, doesn't it?
On one side.
Well, the sign's on one side, isn't the base on the other?
No, we got 4 locations we have to upgrade is what we looked at.
Oh, okay, I thought I
Yeah,
saw one
because
the
the
other day.
sign, the anchors themselves are a lot bigger than what the sign posts are.
Oh,
Get a jackhammer hole a little bit bigger.
You know, one thing I was wondering about is that if I remember right, somewhere I heard, I can't remember if it was in the report or somewhere else, that if you don't have a bump, if you have a bump out, then you only need half a car space on each side, but if you don't have a bump out, then you need a full parking space on each side. Is that ringing a bell with anybody else? That's my
No,
memory
I think
of
it's
it.
still half a space on each side,
A half.
because it's a certain amount measurement, so it's like
Oh,
bump out or
okay.
no bump out.
So either way, it's the same. Oh,
Yeah.
I was thinking, I thought if we did bump out, we could do take away less parking spaces, but maybe that's
No,
not the
I
case.
don't think so.
Oh,
I think it's 8 feet, Lucia, each side of the crosswalk.
okay, however.
and the parking
I
space
thought it was
is
5,
20?
but
20.
Okay, so in theory, if we shifted all of our parking spaces, we'd only lose 1 at each end of the crosswalk, because we could use a half on each side.
yeah.
It would require repainting the whole thing.
Well, repainting happens every spring.
Yeah, right, so maybe it wouldn't matter really, but, yeah. Because I thought the report, I thought said a full parking space on each side, which gave us our, what was it, 14 or some spaces that were gonna be taken out? Or is it if it's
No,
only
yeah, I
one?
don't think that's right, but
Okay, I'll
I would have to look at it
Okay,
again.
so for right now, we don't want to push to order any new signs, because we're not certain that that's the way to go, but.
Well, we could
want-
certainly work on it through the budget and, you know,
Yeah,
make
We
plans
could
for
put money,
spring
in,
anyway.
yeah, for something, whether it's that or bump outs or, but so for right now, it'd be great to pair, so it sounds like people are saying, let's pair them up down by the laundromat.
Is it laundromat then, is that right?
That's what I'm hearing.
We try that for now. We
Try
can
that
get
for
the other
now.
base
See
locations
if that
ready.
doesn't help things, it should slow things
You
down.
get to move it, Tom.
I don't know how we measure this. I mean, we keep saying we want to see how it works, but I don't know how we're gonna know how it
Well,
works.
I went down today for an hour and only one person pushed the button. So with them paired up, it'd be interesting to see at the same time slot on Thursday.
Yeah,
How does
yeah.
that impact people's behavior?
Okay, that's good.
And what I was
Better
trying to
than
do
nothing.
today is catch somebody and ask them, why didn't you push the button? But I
Yeah.
never got that chance to.
Yeah,
I think some of it is just, some people don't want to do it, is what it comes down to. But having the capability to do it is good, and particularly like right now with it being done, daylight's different than right now,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Nighttime, this is a bigger deal, in my opinion.
All right,
Could be habit too, if we give people time and like,
yeah. All right, let's move on. Unless anybody has anything else for Sean from the town report, or from the town manager's report. All right, next is road foreman report. Tom Fadden, what have you been up to?
It's gonna be quick, sweet, and easy. Grading, plowing, redid the bridge,
It was the same thing this
and
time
brush
of year?
cut, and that's it. And hanging Christmas lights today.
Today you did?
Huh?
You did today?
Yeah.
Good.
It was nice out, so why not jump ahead of it? But no, we,
Where are you grading?
huh?
Where were you grading?
Oh, God.
Is that before the snow?
Yes, that was before the snow. We were still grading.
Yeah.
And hopefully tomorrow, it's supposed to be warm in the morning, so everything shouldn't be froze down, so we should be able to start up again. We ended up redoing the bridge up on Riverside
Yeah.
Farms. So that one took a little bit longer than what it usually does.
Okay.
The loader actually went through the bridge,
Oh,
so.
that's
good.
exciting.
It really wasn't for the guy in the bucket loader, but
It wasn't exciting?
no,
Oh,
no. So,
I would've thought it would've been.
yeah, not with a, 30-foot drop.
Yeah,
That would've been-
exciting, not in a good way, but
Yeah,
exciting,
so,
yeah.
but anyway, so that took us about 3 days up there to do that. Two days of the full crew, and then there was 3 of us that went up the following day to redo the guardrails and tighten everything down, and I think we used over 600 screws on the deck, I think somewhere around there. So we did that. The other thing we ended up doing was running a chipper for a week, or give or take 3 or 4 days. We ended up cutting out cutting the roadside up through on the bottom of West Hill to the top of the blacktop where we just repaved. So we got that all cut back. Besides that, basically just got the trucks ready for the plowing. We still got wings to put on. We do have one truck down right now. That one's got electrical issues. Should have a mechanic coming on Monday for that one. Basically about it really. Get back out grading again, and as long as it will last, so.
All right,
I do have an important news update.
oh, okay,
The Hazen girls won their semifinal game, so they're on to the finals.
wow, exciting.
Just thought everybody would like to hear that. No new business? Well, that's when it came out, right?
Any questions for Tom?
The bridge looks great, Tom.
Does now. But,
Thank you.
yeah,
Next is Hardwick Police Department report, Aaron Cochran.
1 minute, chief.
Everybody took my comment.
Yeah,
Halloween, relatively uneventful. We did have one large party that night, one of the industrial parks, that we're still investigating as to who actually hosted that, et cetera. There's about 75 people there. There was, to our belief, alcohol, et cetera, and a large gathering of people is obviously an issue under current standards, et cetera, so we're currently investigating the host of that particular party, what business actually hosted that particular party. But, and then we'll forward that information to the AG's office as they're handling complaints under that matter. So,
okay,
but other than that, Halloween, we really didn't see a whole lot of trick-or-treaters. It was fairly quiet around town both nights, actually, the night before and the night of Halloween.
yeah,
Relatively quiet. Disappointed we couldn't do what we normally do, because we really enjoy that interaction with the kids and parents and stuff that night. So it was kind of a little disappointing, but hopefully next year will be much different than this year was, so.
Yeah.
Let's see, we also, we ordered the additional watch guard body cameras that we needed, so those have been on order. Also, Marku is going through the process of firearms instructor training for us. We always try to have our own firearms instructor, every department does. We didn't currently have one, and in the past, when we haven't had one, Warden Choplin, the game warden for the area, has been able to fill in and do our firearms certifications for the year. There's been some changes in the Fish and Wildlife Agency, and they're not allowed to help out other agencies like that anymore, so we actually had to hire another department to come in and do ours until we can get Lucas through the full certification course to do that. But we got it done, and just was a bit of a surprise, some of the stuff that we didn't expect, but we'll get him through so that we'll have our own again. So it's fairly extensive training to get an instructor certificate. You know, our last one moved on to another agency, so we didn't have one, but hopefully we will again soon. Detective Corporal Leho, have him signed up next week. He's going to be taking a 2-day internal affairs investigation class. Internal affairs investigations, actually the state mandates that we actually designate somebody to do our internal investigations, which would be investigating citizens' complaints, et cetera, et cetera. So I designated him as the person to do it. So he's been to some before, but this is a 2-day training, so he's going to be doing this next week. Let's see here, website design. We're moving forward with the website design. Talked with the company. They're going to set up, photographer to get pictures taken that they want for the website, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're working through. So hopefully within the next few months, we'll see a rollout of that particular website. So let's see, what else do we have? S-119, as we know, has become law. Was not signed by the governor. The governor said that his hopes were that there would be more players coming to the table to discuss S-119 when legislature was
Which one is S-119?
So S-119 is there's various things in it. One of the things that's very concerning to law enforcement as it was passed is the fact that chokeholds are a felony for an officer if they should use a chokehold. And you probably would normally think, well, that's not a bad thing. Well, it doesn't disbar in a fatal use of force situation. So in other words, if the officer is fighting for his life and the only thing he can do to save his own life is some type of a chokehold or something of the neck, that officer could be charged with a felony and could face up to 10 years for trying to save his own life. So we're looking for changes to go in and to discuss it a little bit further so that law enforcement really wasn't given a seat at the table when this first went through. It was really pushed through, and there's a lot of things that we feel, as law enforcement that were not taken into account, and that they probably don't understand what it's like to roll around on the ground fighting for your life and so on. So we're hoping to be able to come to the table, have more discussion about it, and hopefully they'll look at some amendments to that particular law. But because of that, we had another update on our policy, use of force policy, that came through from the league again because of the passing of S-119 as it was written. So the governor also feels that, as I said, more people need to come to the table on that. There needs to be a lot more discussion than what there was on that initial on that initial loss. So, so we're hoping that that will happen. And then everybody can discuss different scenarios and try to come up with the best solution, you know, for that, rather than a lot of rush through, which that one was. So, so that was one, that's 119. One of the other things, winter parking ban, I want to mention, that goes into effect November 15th. We usually try to be good and put notices on people's cars for the first week or so. After that, we start issuing tickets and or towing, depending on, you know, if they're in the way of plowing, we will tow them and usually issue a ticket as well. So, but we try to warn people. Hopefully we won't have that much snow November 15th, but we'll see.
Just to review, what is the winter parking ban? So that's on Main Street and
Every street.
all side streets?
Yeah, all streets,
So no parking on the street?
after midnight.
Overnight, right?
Yeah, it's overnight parking,
Yeah.
yeah.
Midnight till when?
6.
6. So usually, there's not a huge problem, but we usually try to remind everybody, we do stick the, you know, things on their windshield and for the first week or so and remind them what the date is, and usually it's not an issue. We do have a few problems occasionally, but, and we also went out and started putting, notices on vehicles we found parked left to curb, as well.
Yeah.
Prior to issuing tickets for that. We did speak with, on West Church Street, we spoke with the food shelf about it, asking them, you know, if they'd remind their patrons, you know, that they need to be parked, not opposing traffic. It does cause a traffic issue when you're pulling out facing traffic. We also spoke with the dentist's office that's on West Church Street. They actually put a sign in their office so that if somebody came in and saw the sign, they hopefully would go out and leave their car and not get a ticket. So we did try to, you know,
And that applies on all,
that applies on all streets.
Highland Avenue as
Yeah,
well?
all streets, yep,
Happens
yep.
a lot on Highland Avenue.
Yeah, and it probably does. We see West Church as probably
Yeah.
one of the biggest offenders.
Parking on Main Street, over the crosswalk and parked going the opposite direction.
So-
Big truck.
So yeah, so we, you know, we tried to warn people a little bit first, but, we're not gonna warn them forever. It's, you know, we're gonna have to issue tickets. Another thing that we had come up, that Casey and I have been trying to work through, as you know, we have the COTS grant, which is a, you know, this federal grant. A new federal mandate came down, was signed and came down that, any department receiving federal funds had to comply and be certified that they were complying with the new federal mandates that came down. Those federal mandates, they were about policies, department's policies. Our policies are fine and comply and are up to date, but the certifying agency is the Vermont Criminal Justice Training Council. They had no idea. The federal government didn't talk to the state government, and nobody had any idea these mandates were coming down. They have to be certified by January 30th, I think it is, of 2021. So we have within a few months to get certified. The training council has no process or anything set up to certify anybody for what the feds are asking for. So they're working through all this to try and figure out what they have to do and how to get together with each department that actually currently has federal money, so you can take care of them first and so on. We're working through it. I don't think it's gonna be a big deal, but it is something that, you know, Casey and I are having to work through. We've talked with Trevor Whipple, who is the liaison, law enforcement liaison with the league. He's talked with the head of the training council at this point, so.
Yeah, stand by, Matt.
So it is something that we're working on, but it is something new that came down that was a surprise to all of us, including state government, so. So we're trying to work through that as well.
What kind of things you said that they have, the new thing that you're having to certify, what kind of things is that?
So they were, the biggest one was a policy on chokeholds.
This is from the federal level?
Yes, from the federal level. We're not sure if there's going to be the federal level, basically was saying that chokeholds would be banned with the exception of a lethal use of force situation, which is what we're saying the state law should have said, but the state law didn't. The state law banned it altogether. And so we're not sure if that's gonna be a confliction of what state law and what federal, so we just don't know at this point in time. We have the most up-to-date policies, but it's a matter of getting whatever certification they want, to say we're in compliance, so. I've read the policy, I read what they're asking for, and it's a matter of policies, that's the main one, that they wanted.
But Aaron, just the foundation comment is a chokehold isn't even you're not trained in that move, right?
Correct. It wouldn't be something we would use anyways, but which some people wouldn't realize, when an officer's fighting for your life, you're truly fighting for your life, and, sometimes what you're training, you gets thrown out the window. You're truly trying to fight for your life, which is an awful feeling, and, when it comes down to you or another person, you're obviously gonna pick you and you're gonna do what you have to do to survive, and so none of that was taken into effect in the Vermont law, so.
All
That's all I
right.
got.
Any other questions for Aaron?
I have a sort of a silly question, but I feel compelled to ask it because there seems to be a handful of people that are using their modified, possibly lawnmowers to drive around town on a frequent basis. I mean, I didn't see them while it was so cold with the snow, but oh my God, what's going on? Why are people driving around on lawnmowers?
We are looking to address that problem, so if you see
Okay,
them,
I'm glad you know about it.
if you see them, we would love a phone call to be able
Okay.
to find out where they are and where they're using it at that point in time. We know
All right,
about them.
thank
So,
you.
Yeah,
Good. Glad to know it. I'll be calling.
yeah, please
Yeah.
do.
Creamery Road, Rail Trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, actually, that reminds me of another thing, quick thing, rail trail. We have received, a few different, just various complaints of some garbage dumping, misuse of it by things that aren't supposed to be using it, et cetera, which is expected. We expect it to, increase as use increases.
This is Patrick Dempsey with the assessor.
And
Can
then-
you hear me?
Matt, can you hear me now? Matt, can you hear me?
So we are,
Matt?
we actually
Star
did
six.
find out about a grant program through a UTV manufacturer, an off-road UTV manufacturer. Actually has a grant program for vehicles outfitted for law enforcement, government purposes. We looked into that, so in very early stages of that at this point in time, but they actually have assigned a grant manager to one of the officers that I assigned it to. They actually have a grant manager that has reached out to them to help them write the grant, whatever resources we need, et cetera, to basically give us something like a utility vehicle that would give us access to the rail trail, to ATV trails, to everything that would be outfitted as a law enforcement vehicle. We were looking for it that would also have what they call a skid that goes in the back of it, that has a stretcher and everything, so if you had to go in and get somebody that was injured or anything, we'd be able to do that as well. So we're all in very early stages of that grant process, but we're trying to get a grant for that, in anticipation of, a lot of rail trail use and being able to.
I think that rail trail is supposed to be designed to drive an ambulance on.
It could be, I think it would depend on the time of year, but.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah.
No, in the winter, it would be like a snowmobile.
I don't know
Trail,
that
but-
I would drive an ambulance down it, but.
Yeah.
Tom would.
They want to. Yes, they
Dang,
could.
I would.
But this particular vehicle, if we were to get the grant, would certainly give us access to a lot of areas we don't have access to currently, so.
Yeah.
But still,
Yeah.
as I said, in very early stages of that, so.
Okay.
Eric, there's somebody, this woman had a question.
There you go, right. She had her-
Hi. Oh, sorry, I didn't see.
The lights blasting us.
Could you state your name, please?
Yeah, Brenda, Collier, and, you know, I'm not sure exactly, I know you're talking about the rail trail and you're talking about vehicles, but I am having a little hard time hearing, this is a bigger room, we have masks on, and a lot of what is being said is getting muffled. So I'm really having a hard time with that, but then that aside, I was on the rail trail about a month ago, and there was somebody who rode up there with, it was on a lawnmower, riding lawnmowers,
Yeah.
and it looked like that bottle of beer in his hand.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the group that we were just discussing. So Aaron said he's aware of them, and
Okay.
if people see them, they give a call to
Right.
the police department.
And there is a sign that says,
Yes, and no motorized vehicles, yeah. Yep. There's a sign, all right.
And that's, you know, we've identified, we're not driving cruisers on the rail trail. We're not driving police cruisers on the rail trail. So we have to, you know, look ahead at how do we access more remote areas, et cetera.
People I've
So
seen
that's-
haven't been on the rail trail.
No.
They've been on Highland.
No, they've been on the rail.
same
Right
people
here.
have been.
Yeah, they,
Okay.
The same
the same
lawnmower,
one.
yes,
They're
yes.
getting around.
The same lawnmower gang has been on the rail trail.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna move on to item number 1. Hopefully Matt Krajewski's available to hear us and to speak to us.
Do you have them on your phone, Casey, or what? I don't know what's going on with our call tonight, but we're having issues.
Well, so you're not on there anymore. 6120 has left, so you'll have to call back in.
Okay.
I have Matt on here and Bill is on.
Okay.
I've got Bill muted, but I have Matt, so,
Okay, so,
if
Can
you
dial
just
in,
call
or-
back in.
I'm gonna dial back in,
Yeah.
Casey.
Matt, can you hear us? I can, but I'm gonna have, Sean's gonna actually call back in and put you on like the phone speaker, because this is just on my cell phone, so give us just a sec.
This is how my entire week has gone with technology, people.
So Sean's just calling back in and then you'll be on the speaker again.
followed by pound. Otherwise,
Okay, yep, just give me, you can just verbally just give me the heads up when to go.
There are 3 participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself.
Matt, can you hear me?
You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing star 6. You are unmuted.
This is not gonna work tonight, folks. Matt, can you hear me? Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I can hear you. I'll try to be brief here. I know this internet connection here is great. I just have a couple of quick emergency omissions I wanted to present to you tonight on behalf of myself, the assessor. The first one, I believe you have both of the packets in front of you, the document. The first property I'll do quick is owned by Dennis and Thomas Williams and Lorette Williams Corville. It's located at 20 Hickers Lane. The parcel ID is 23-00060. The current assessment on it is $99,000. The property is currently being assessed with .08 acres of land. It has come to our attention that there are in fact .835 acres that goes with this parcel. This is based on a survey that was recorded in the town office. We request from our office that we adjust the value to the 2020 grand list. Increasing the acreage would yield a value of $108,200. So that's the first one. The second one that I have to present to you here this evening is a parcel owned by Terrence Mullen. It's located at 88 Central Street, parcel ID 21053-00000. Current assessment on that parcel is $83,900. That parcel currently is being valued with .14 acres of land. Again, it has come to our attention that in fact there are .27 acres of contiguous land. There are technically 2 lots here. There's a lot that goes with the house, and then there's a vacant lot, being contiguous anyways, in a budding parcel. I've included the book and page reference to the deed, book 152, page 435. So that parcel, the secondary parcel is parcel number 210530010, and currently the ownership on that parcel is under the town of Hardwick. So it is an exempt parcel. It does not generate a tax bill currently. Certainly through our findings, we found that Mr. Mullen does in fact own this parcel, and that it should be taxed contiguously with his house at 88 Central Street. So I would ask you to adjust that, give us permission to adjust that assessed value to $84,800. So that's parcel ID 21053 and 5 zeros following. That would be the active parcel. The inactive parcel would now become 210530010. That one would be made inactive. I'll certainly take any questions if we can here, if anybody has any questions for me.
This is a lot we sold.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have any questions.
I don't think we have any questions, so could we have a motion to approve both errors and omissions requests?
So,
Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Matt.
All right, thank you. And then hopefully just through Casey, if we could just get a copy of the final signed document there, we could get it down into the lister's office. We could just get it filed.
Okay.
I'll scan those.
Okay, that's perfect.
I have to keep mine on mute, that's why,
Yeah.
so.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, thank you for your time this evening, folks.
Okay, item number 2 is a follow-up on our discussion on River Street, Mill Street in East Hardwick. And we had some more information, I think this week or late last week, from Bill Davies, who looked into it a little bit, and we have Bill on the phone, I believe. Bill, are you there?
He is, but he's gonna press star 6 on his phone.
Yep, Bill, you need to press star 6 on your phone to unmute yourself.
So, I'll just give a brief lead in here. This was an issue that came to our attention through some residents who were concerned about the access to some lots over by the river in East Hardwick, and there's a traveled way that has been variously called River Street or Mill Street, and there was a question as to whether that was a public a town highway or not, and so we asked Bill Davies for some clarification on whether that was the case, and I believe Bill said that it looks as if that it's not. We don't have anything to lead us to believe that it is or was a town highway, I believe.
Bill, are you there, Bill?
He has to unmute himself, he has to press star 6.
Can you do that as the administrator or not?
It won't let me, I said ask to unmute, but it won't let me.
Bill, if you can hear me, you need to unmute yourself by hitting star 6 on your keypad. She's still in the waiting room.
You are muted.
Who is muted?
Bill, are you there?
you can't hear you, Sean, are you muted?
Push star 6, John.
You are unmuted.
Bill, if you can hear me, you need to hit star 6 to unmute your phone to go ahead and offer some comments.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, I was having technical issues.
Okay, I don't know what was going on, but I think I probably ended up pressing it. I mean, it kept hearing to press *6, and I think I probably hit it at least 10 times.
Well, 10th time was the charm.
In any event, I'm technologically challenged, and I'll be the first to admit.
Okay.
So I probably did something wrong. But basically, I think the situation is that there's been a lot of good historical research done, and I think the survey that was provided to me also noted that on the 1875 Beers Atlas, as well as the 1930s era town road maps, showed it as a public way. Now, there's a big difference between a public way and a highway. First of all, a lot of the historical stuff got thrown out the window as far as relevance is concerned by the recent legislation that indicated that municipalities, in order to avoid any ancient road having any continuing town right-of-way, had to take certain action by January 1st. I think it was January 1st of 2019, but in any event, it's well past. So the concept of ancient road is thrown out. Now the next thing is just because a municipality may have a right-of-way does not make it a highway. And I think, if I recall correctly, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, had an issue on a roadway, or not a roadway, but a right-of-way that was not a road, where it was either power line or telephone trucks were parking. And I don't remember exactly who was the town manager at that point, but the point is that a right-of-way does not take with it parking rights. And again, through that Hardwick situation, I know that Danny Hale was involved in it, if that helps as far as timing is concerned. But be that as it may, there was no right to park because under the law, if there is just an undefined right-of-way, that is only for ingress and egress. It does not carry with it any parking rights. Now, as far as whether or not it is a town highway, as I indicated, there are specific requirements for laying out a town highway, and those requirements essentially haven't changed for many, many decades. And one of the first things that's required is a survey. And again, there's been no indication that I have seen that, number one, there was ever a survey, and number two, that there was ever a laying out of this roadway or this passageway as a town highway. And again, I think it probably would not be all that difficult to establish that the fire department has a right-of-way to access its property. And the reason for that is even though municipalities cannot acquire title to rights-of-way by prescriptive easement, and prescriptive easement is essentially the same as adverse possession, but it applies to municipalities because municipalities can neither benefit from or lose interest in property through adverse possession. But again, the point is that the owner of what's the fee title would be, in my opinion, stopped from claiming that the fire department didn't have the right of ingress and egress.
You mean Fire District, Bill? Bill, you mean the
What's that?
You mean the East Hardwick Fire District, the owners of the second law
Yes.
van?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about, is East Hardwick Fire District.
Thank you.
Thanks for the clarification. But as I say, there's nothing in any of the documentation that I saw that would grant parking rights. And as I understand it, this building, which I certainly, as well, I can just give you a little background. My connection with Tracy Martin, for whom I have a lot of respect, flows from her work with the Orleans County Historical Society, the Old Stone House. And I'm a former president of the Orleans County Historical Society. And as a kid, I grew up about 0.2 of a mile from the Old Stone House. So the point being that I think the only thing that Tracy may have been missing is that there's a substantial difference between right-of-way and public highway. So I think it's very clear that there has been a right-of-way, but as I say, a right-of-way, unless there is something that expands the normal term right-of-way, does not include the right to park. And certainly the building it would be, wonderful to revitalize that building. But again, it doesn't, there's absolutely no evidence that it would be a town highway. Another thing to complicate things is you go back, probably now it's 80 years or so, and any conveyance to a municipality was in the name of the legislative body. So, for instance, if John Jones and Sam Smith were two of the select board members or trustees of East Hardwick, the deed would have been to John Jones and Sam Smith. And that's how it would be indexed. It wouldn't be indexed under the town or the village. So that's a complicating factor. And just, for a point of interest, since I mentioned the Old Stone House, a few years ago, there was an event that got quite a lot of publicity, and that is the former Orleans County Grammar School that for over 100 years had been the Grange Hall, was moved by oxen up the hill to where it was originally located. And in connection with that, in behalf of the town of Brownington, which was the owner of the building, my job was to find the deed to the town. And of course I knew this business about it being, listed under the names of the legislative body, but my family had passed down to me the fact that when that building was conveyed from the Orleans County Grammar School trustees to the town of Brownington, that my great-grandfather was a trustee of the Orleans County Grammar School, and my great-great-grandfather was a select board member at that time. So it was very easy for me, because I knew that it would be under Davies, both as grantor and grantee, and I was right. So it impressed a lot of people that I was able to find it so quickly. But I don't have that connection with East Hardwick.
So I think though, Bill, that most of the deeds that we've seen from at least early 1900s, they are deeded to the village of Hardwick.
And that is around the time, well, maybe my years are right. This thing that I was talking about was in about 1860.
Okay.
Now, again, I wouldn't be surprised because I know in some other towns, up until at least the turn of the century, it was still being, things were still being deeded in the names of the legislative body.
Kaylee, do you have a question?
Yeah, Phil, you mentioned, I believe, a reason why to not lay out a highway there, like the difference between the laying out of a highway and a right-of-way. Could you just speak, it was a question at our last meeting about should there be a highway and a part of that road, or should there really just be a survey and have, so I'm just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit more. I don't know if you heard me.
I have to repeat it.
Bill, did you hear Kaylee's question?
What was that?
No.
Did you hear Kaylee's question?
No, I couldn't.
Okay, I will try to summarize.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the question is, at our last meeting, the question of whether the traveled way should be a town highway versus a right of way. Is that your question?
I was just wondering if you could clarify he had talked about laying out a highway.
Oh, what about it?
You really laying it out now?
Is that what he was talking about, or
He
laying
was
it
talking
out
about it in the
before?
past, but are you talking
Yeah.
about laying it out now?
I'm
Because we
just,
don't actually own it.
okay, so
Because
that's.
Hang on, we're clarifying the
It's
question.
okay, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
So,
I think he was saying that it hadn't been laid out in the past, that he knows.
So my other question, I have a much simpler question.
yeah,
Stand by, Bill.
Which is, so that, the two properties that are, that we've been talking about
Adjacent.
on River Street,
Yeah.
in terms of parking, are James Toysher's property and then the old, what we call the Putt Fanes building.
Okay.
My question is, so we're talking about the right-of-way, obviously on Mill Street itself, but I'm curious about the right-of-way from our town highway, because the parking is really, really close, so I'm just wondering what the town has in terms of a right-of-way from Main Street in East Hardwick to that
Oh.
parking lot.
so you're asking about the width of a town right away for a town highway is typically three rods, which is just barely under 50 feet.
Okay,
That's 25 feet from the center line.
so, and maybe this is an opportunity to have a survey, but those parking lots are probably pretty close to, if we're talking about parking right out front of those buildings, then I'm just curious about where our line kind of ends on those
Yeah.
properties, and then where the right-of-way might begin. I'm just curious.
Okay, so Bill, imagine that the building in question sits so close to Main Street that is a town highway, and let's say Main Street has a 3-rod right-of-way. If someone parks in front of the building and is within that 3-rod right-of-way, is that a legal way to park? Is that the question?
I would think it'd be no different than what we got down through the middle of Main Street here,
Where parking spots are now.
where the parking spots are now. State highway, that's
Okay,
3 rods.
if that is the question, the answer is that within the 3 rods, the municipality has the right to maintain the highway.
Okay,
It would not authorize a parking lot, if you will. Now, with that said, as long as somebody parks on the side of the road outside of the travel portion of the road, then the owner of the fee title would be able to, complain and prevent that from happening. Now, the owner of the fee title, keep in mind that that generally old town highways are, as somebody has indicated, 3 rods wide, but the adjoining owner owns to the center line, subject to the public's right-of-way. Now, for highway purposes. Now, the problem is that if this was set up as a commercial establishment, the parking that took place would not be for highway purposes. Okay? And but by highway purposes, what I mean is if somebody is driving and they get a flat tire, they can pull off within the right-of-way for a purpose of repairing the car. Now, there's a fairly recent Vermont Supreme Court case in which I was involved in behalf of the town of Charleston. And in that case, the title of the case is Davis versus Maxwell. And unfortunately, it was a situation where 2 neighbors just despised each other. And what happened is the neighbor on one side of the road was deeded a surveyed lot that only went to the edge of the right-of-way. So the person on the other side of the road actually owned the fee title right up to the edge of the right-of-way. And what the Supreme Court determined was that the owner of the property that did not own to the center line of the right-of-way had no right to park there, no right to put anything there, because the owner of the fee had full title except for the rights of the public to pass and repass over the roadway, and also the right of the municipality to have drainage ditches and et cetera.
But the
So that is the problem that would come about with reference to that. Now, there's a totally unrelated to highway concept that could possibly be employed, and that is a municipality has the right to condemn property for a public purpose. Now, by condemn, I don't mean health officer, I mean to take it. So, the condemnation that we're most used to is for highway purposes. But if the municipality determined, for instance, that it needed a new town hall, it could basically find any property in the town that it liked, and the term is condemn it. Now, what that means is the town would have to pay the owner fair market value for the property. But again, the town would have that possibility. Now, where it would take some creative thinking would be to figure out how this building and the land around it was capable of being taken by condemnation. And if the owner of the property contested it, then it would be up to the court to determine whether or not it served a public good.
Okay.
Or necessity.
Right, okay.
But has there been any effort to negotiate with the owner of the property to get something? The reason I'm asking that is litigation can be very expensive, and certainly it's a last-ditch effort. But the first effort would be to negotiate some kind of purchase.
So if the person who owns the property be simple and the town agree that the user of the property can park there. So in other words, James Tozier could park on the town right of way in front of his building. Is that correct?
think so.
If he owns the land, he could.
Yeah, right, on the Main Street side, assuming he owns the land.
Right.
Right. Because I think the issue is between
Those two.
where the road, where the.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
a
I'm
little
not familiar.
unclear on it.
Not about Main Street, it's about River Street.
Right.
Right, but within the Main Street right of way, if he owns that.
Is that Tracy back there?
Um,
Can you state your name, Tracy?
Tracy Martin, East Hardwick. So I've done a little bit more research since the last meeting, and I'm wondering if I could ask Bill some questions.
Might help if you come up to this chair and we have you project to this mic, Tracy. We're having trouble with our audio tonight,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I got you. Hi, Bill. It's Tracy.
I think I heard somebody say, hi, Bill.
That's Tracy. It's Tracy.
Oh, Tracy, okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, how are you?
Don't ask.
I'm great. I kind of guessed that you said, how are you? But I can't hear you very clearly.
Sorry, okay. I'll stop trying to do that. So you might have to relay questions because
Okay.
I might be too
Yep.
muffled. But, so I've been doing a little bit more research. One thing I wanted to double check.
I'm not hearing any.
Well,
I
Bill,
can
we'll,
hear some talking.
yeah, hang on, Bill. What we'll do is we'll repeat the question if you want to just
Okay,
stand
I'll
by.
just talk to you later.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm wondering if Bill was able to look at the deeds that we referenced at the last meeting. The two in particular, the one from 1929, deeding the grist mill lot and the right-of-way and the water rights and the dam
Yeah.
to the village of Hardwick, and then the one from 1969 deeding just the grist mill lot to the fire district.
Yeah. So
Do you know if you had a chance to look at those?
I'll ask him, but did you hear him say that there's a difference between a right-of-way and a public highway?
Yes, but I
Okay.
get into that. That's enough.
Bill, Tracy wants to know if you had a chance to review the two deeds from the 1930, the one,
1929 and
19
1969.
1929 and 1969. The first one deeds it from the mill to the village.
Clarence Smith to the village of Hardwick.
Then the second one deeds it from the
Yes, I did.
village to the fire district, but reserve,
For the
doesn't,
fire district, yes, I did.
okay?
So in the deed from Clarence Smith to the village of Hardwick in 1929, and let's just put the highway thing aside for now. It includes a right-of-way.
Yeah, so that first deed includes a right of way.
So at that point,
But again, the issue is a right-of-way does not
I know.
contain parking rights.
I know, that's in later on. I'm just want to determine that in 1929, a right-of-way to the grist mill lot was deeded to the village of Hardwick.
Yeah, so there's a right of way that was deeded to the village.
And I'm leading to something.
Yep, got it.
So does everybody agree with that?
Yeah,
So is
yes.
that, at that point, that's a public right-of-way?
No, I don't think so. Bill, the question is,
I wasn't able to hear Tracy.
right, so the question is, so the 1929 deed, that deeds the property to the village of Hardwick includes a right of way from Main Street to the lot, the property. And the question is
That is correct.
is that a public right of way?
No,
Yeah, I didn't think
no.
so.
It's to the fire district.
No,
No,
this is before the fire district, this is the village.
No, it isn't.
I
The
mean,
fire district never receives that right-of-way.
But again, the point is that a right-of-way is not the same as a street.
I
or a road.
understand that. I'm trying to establish a
And
right-of-way.
as I said it earlier on, with the instance that we had in behalf of Hardwick, and I'm sorry I don't remember the details, but it was a utility company that was parking within a right-of-way that the municipality had, but it wasn't a highway, and they had no right to park.
Okay, so, right.
I'm just trying to understand if it's a public right-of-way. That's all I'm trying to.
But the
So,
village of East Hardwick acquired a right-of-way.
no, not the village of East Hardwick, it's the village of Hardwick. There was no Village of East
Okay,
Hardwick.
that's right, yeah, because I learned something here that the Village of Hardwick used to be the center of town, and I certainly had no idea about that. But be that as it, I'll use the word municipality, that way I won't get in trouble.
So,
But the important thing is there is a big difference between a highway and a right-of-way, even when the owner is a municipality. A right-of-way is only for egress and ingress unless there is something else specified.
okay,
A highway conveys more than just the right of access to and from. It includes the right to do drainage ditches. It includes the right to do whatever is necessary to maintain the highway. As we've already discussed, traditional highways are 3 rods wide. Well, the travel portion is nowhere near that. The reason for that extra width is maintenance, drainage, so on and so forth. When there is a right-of-way alone, those rights are not conveyed.
so, Bill,
Unless, yeah?
I wonder if maybe the material point may be that it is, if a municipality owns a right-of-way from a highway to a parcel of land, is that right-of-way, because it's owned by a municipality, is that right-of-way open to the public? Is it public
No,
right-of-way?
it would only be for the purpose of the property for which it is granted. And that makes sense. So at some point, when, and again, I'm not going to talk about who owned it, but if the property was for the purpose of having a fire station, then the right-of-way was given with that in mind, and that is the only stuff that could be done. So, that would be access to and from the, garage, if there's a garage, or whatever the fire vehicles
Okay.
were at the time of that granting. And I'm guessing that it was probably before they had modern fire trucks. But the point is that it doesn't include parking, because parking is not a normal incident. Parking for this other building is not a normal incident, and nothing that would have been contemplated by either the grantor or the grantee of that right-of-way.
Okay, I think we got that part, thanks.
So the next deed, the one dated 1969 from the Village of Hardwick to the East Hardwick Fire District, is only for the grist mill parcel. It spells out specifically that it does not include the right-of-way. So it doesn't just fail to mention the right-of-way, it specifically says this does not include the right-of-way. So the right-of-way was never turned over to the East Hardwick Fire District. It was retained by the Village of Hardwick. To what end, I don't know. But as of the map from the Beers Atlas in 1875, Mill Street is a street that appears on the town map. This is before the deed that went to the Village of Hardwick, deeding the right-of-way. I assume they're talking about Mill Street. I don't know what, that's the street that went to the mill. That would have been the mill owner's right-of-way. So I believe that Mill Street became a town street at the time that the right-of-way was given to the town. And
Why? Sorry, just to stop you right there. Why do you think it became a street then?
I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
Because in my conversation with the nice gentleman at AOT, who's their GIS administrator, I mentioned it last time, he told me that there's several ways that towns get streets or highways. You asked an interesting question last time about, is there any evidence that what Kayla was talking about earlier, that the street was ever laid out, what we're using as the, so no, there isn't, because the town didn't lay it out. So The fellow at AOT explained there are several different ways the towns acquire highways historically. One of them was they laid them out themselves. They decided we want to have a road here, it's good for our town. They laid them out. I'm not even sure there would be records of all of those, but maybe. But a very common way that towns got streets is called dedication acceptance. And that's where somebody else already created this road because they needed to get to their whatever house up on the hill. And they deed it to the town. So the town never laid it out, it was already created by somebody else, and the town accepts it, and it becomes a town road. And it appears that Mill Street is an instance of dedication acceptance, where it was created by the mill owner to access his grist mill, and then in 1920, whoever inherited all of that deeded it to the town, and at that point, it became a town street. The fact that it isn't on the highway map, I think, proves nothing, because as we determined last time, there's several other things that are also not on the highway map. AOT's information is only as good as the...
Is Emily okay?
Oh my gosh!
Sure.
Is it okay? So can I just run the dedication acceptance idea by Bill?
Yeah, sure.
Or Kaylee, do you want to say something first?
Just ask one very simple question.
Yeah, go for it.
That maybe Bill figured out. But what it sounds like is the last record that we have, if I'm understanding this correctly, is that the road was given to the town of Hardwick, or that strip of land was given to the town of Hardwick. Is that is that all we know in terms of ownership of that chunk of land? Bill, is that what is?
You talking about the right of way, or is it?
I'm just talking about the land and the right, like if that's really what we're asking, is who owns, and then who can determine the right of way, and if it's public or not public. Do we know who owns that? Is it the municipality? Do we?
So, Bill, you still with us?
Yes.
Okay, so, Tracy has just posited that, the way events unfolded, is that the village of Hardwick, was deeded a parcel of land and a right-of-way to get there in 1929. In 1969, the village of Hardwick deeds the parcel, the land, only to the East Hardwick Fire District, but explicitly retains the right-of-way. And so Tracy's posited that since the use of that since has been as a road, then through dedication and acceptance, it's currently a town highway.
That's absolutely false.
Okay.
Yeah. Dedication and acceptance is a two-way thing. And there has to be something affirmative, and that has not happened. So that is not the case.
Okay, so
Open to the public. And again, I've been involved in litigation involving dedication and acceptance. And the courts are very clear. It has to be very clear and concise. And the other thing is that the right-of-way goes from where it began. Again, that's not the case.
Sorry, say the thing about the right-of-way again, what?
Well, what Tracy is saying, the simple thing is what Tracy is saying is absolutely false as far as anything that is involving dedication and acceptance.
Okay.
I've been involved in a case in Newport involving the Scott farm, and Tracy may be familiar with that case because it got some publicity. But it had been used for decades by people, but nobody could establish that it wasn't by permission. And any time you have anything going on by permission, that's not dedication and acceptance.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
The other thing is that the real issue here is that there's a desire to use this in conjunction with the building that is not owned by the town or wasn't owned by the village. And the point is that even if this was viewed at some point as being a public highway, that was wiped out by the ancient road statute that basically said that if it hasn't been on the town highway map, that it is wiped out.
That's not
Now,
actually.
there's no question that this roadway has not been on the town highway map for decades. I didn't go back all the way, but I looked at several of the official town highway maps, and it ain't there.
And neither is Stevens Lane. I'm just saying, they're quite a few.
And it has to be there for there to be an argument that there was dedication and acceptance.
Dedication and acceptance, I believe, according to what I learned from the man at AOT and what I've been reading, happened at the time that the town accepted the deed to that right-of-way in 1920. It was deeded, it was basically dedicated to the town, and the town accepted the right-of-way. That's what I understood from the man at AOT. Also, the Ancient Roads Act, first of all, the town had to specifically say that they were going to get rid of their ancient roads, and there are specific exemptions, things that could not be gotten rid of that way, trails, dedicated trails were one of them, and the other was roads that are visible as actual traveled roads, and I think everybody can agree that River Street is very visible when it's not. And that's a specific exemption in the law. It didn't go away with the ancient roads law. I've just been reading all about that all day.
I wonder with all these communications things that's going on, if it'd be better to maybe do person to person or maybe write letters back and forth.
I think that this is not the appropriate, I'm feeling like we could spend all night here and not come.
Can I just sum up what the answers that
Sure.
I'm looking for?
Okay.
And again, I have no skin in this game. I don't live on River Street. I'm just a taxpayer that wants to ensure that if we have a public resource, like a public right-of-way, that it's protected as a public resource because it belongs to all of us, and that it's not just given away to one landowner at the expense of other landowners who need access to their property. So I also care a lot about the future of our little village. A lot of people have spent countless volunteer hours getting East Hardwick as a designated village center. Now we have this wonderful little neighborhood organization. We're trying to make our village economically viable and to make two properties basically unusable because a public right-of-way is being used only by one landowner as their private road. I don't think that's fair. And we're not trying to take anybody's right to use that road away. We're trying to expand the rights so everybody can access their property using a road that I believe right-of-way belongs to the town and not to an individual. And that's all we're trying to determine. The parking thing can be dealt, that's like a whole other issue. But first, I think the first thing we need to determine is that right-of-way still held by the town. I believe it is. And that's, I think, the crucial thing to determine. And then how wide it is and whether that leaves people space to park off the right-of-way, that's, we can deal with that later, as far as I'm concerned.
But everything that you presented indicates that the right-of-way stayed with the village, which becomes a town. Right.
But I get your question, is that automatically, does that make it a public right-of-way? I was assuming that, maybe that's not true, but that's an answer I don't think we got to.
No, I don't think so either.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
So I guess we could follow up some questions.
I just missed something. What I just heard was Bill did not indicate this is he said this is not a public right of way.
So, Bill,
That's what I heard.
it does appear from all Tracy's deed research that the right of way was retained by the village.
Was retained by the village?
Correct.
But again, that doesn't make it a highway.
No, well, I guess we're not, right,
Can I
okay.
offer a different perspective here?
Sure.
Bill, let me throw this at you. There's one landowner that's further in, I'm just gonna say it, they're acting as if they control this access, the right of way, if you will. With what I've heard tonight, with any of the adjoining landowners on River Street, if at any time they've been using this over this past 15+ year period, they have just as much right to use this right of way. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, that is a correct statement, because as private citizen against another private citizen, the concept of adverse possession sets in. So even if the owner of the fee title didn't give them permission to use it as a right-of-way, but they used it openly, notoriously, hostilely, and under claim of right for a period of 15 years, then they acquire the legal right to do that. And as indicated, the problem is that municipalities can neither benefit from or lose from adverse possession.
So why?
Only private individuals that can.
Okay, so why I framed it that way is, it seems to me there's a little bit of education that needs to be done with a landowner in that area to say you are not in control of this for the reasons you are pointing out. Any of these adjoining neighbors have the capability to use this as a drive path, if you will.
Yeah, and that would be a private matter as between the adjoining owners and the owner of the fee.
Tracy, you want to say something else?
I don't understand why it's a private matter if the right-of-way is owned by the town. Why do the neighbors have to fight it out? Why can't the town just say it's a right-of-way and anybody that lives along there has a right to use it? It's not a privately held right-of-way. It's municipally held right-of-way. I don't think the neighbors should have to fight it out amongst themselves. That's why we have government.
I don't think I heard Bill say it's a municipally controlled right-of-way, though.
But it is, though.
Every document we have says it is.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that from the attorney, Tracy, is what I meant to say.
Well, because he doesn't understand the fact that if we're not asking about a public, we're not asking about a highway, a town highway.
I think we should take this, I don't think this is the place to deal with this. I think
Yeah,
we
I
need to
think-
clarify with him in writing.
Yeah.
Or in person.
Right.
We're trying to establish what the town owns or doesn't own, because that's all we can control.
Yeah,
And if we own the right of way, we own it. If we don't own it, we don't own it, and we
Yeah.
can figure that out.
right, I agree.
I think it would be helpful to ask Tracy for her questions again, too, just because there's some really specific questions that weren't answered in the information that Bill gave us before. And so
Yeah.
it'd just be helpful to see it in writing.
Yeah. So, Bill, we're gonna table this for now, and we're gonna follow up later,
Okay, well,
yeah.
that works for me. I'm getting hungry.
Okay, me too. All right, thanks, Bill.
Okay, well, have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
Thank you, Bill.
Bye-bye.
Yep, bye.
So next, so I will email Tracy and get those questions and see, that if we can get some resolution somehow.
Eric,
Or-
the root question
Yeah.
is what I didn't mean for Tracy to be upset with what
Yeah.
I stated. It just, what I heard was, is this right of way owned by the town? Is that the root question right now?
That is one, and certainly from the deed research that she's produced, it appears that it is, yeah.
So we need to establish whether he actually saw that deed and what he
Right.
thinks of that, basically.
Right.
It had to do with the dams and everything else, right? So that could be the light department. Give them the right of way to park the vehicle for the dam usage.
Could have been the intent. Yeah, and it's confusing because everything, like, they don't actually own anything, the town owns it.
Correct.
So it's all muddled, but you're right, that could have been, like, it seems very likely that given the time frame, that and the village was acquiring property at that time to acquire water rights. So it probably was.
For the
to
dam
do-
that was there.
Yeah, probably had to do with that.
The funding actually did come from the electric department. The electric department did fund purchasing 3 properties in East Hardwick, and it did come from the electric department. And it did mention the water specifically. If you look at the Gazette's about it.
Oh, that's it, is that?
Yeah. And there was an official special town meeting or 2 or 3 actually, where that should be recorded somewhere.
Oh, okay. All right. Great, thank you. All right. Are we ready to move on? Okay, next up is item 3, select board to discuss proposed AT&T tower on Buffalo Mountain Trail. Well, it's actually not on Buffalo Mountain Trail, it's off Buffalo Mountain Trail, but they're proposing accessing it by going up Buffalo Mountain Trail. And so, our update here is that this has been more than a year, right? This has been since they first came to us with this idea. So, AT&T has a site on Bellavance property on the shoulder of Buffalo Mountain that they're working on, and their proposed access include about half of their access is going up Buffalo Mountain Trail. They came to the select board. We went back and forth a little bit. We finally said, you know, you really need to work with Hardwick Electric because we don't know if you can even get utilities up there. So that was kind of where it was left for a long time. Then they looked at some other sites, and now they're back looking at this site again. And they filed their paperwork asking for certificate of public good. And they still haven't committed to Hardwick Electric standards for getting power up there. There's a meeting tomorrow on site with some folks from AT&T and Hardwick Electric in the town to go look at it and understand how they're actually gonna make it work getting up there. Or if, correct.
Like some of the standards that they had in their stuff that they submitted, we've heard wouldn't be acceptable, so we sort of felt like they should work that out.
Right.
Before we put a lot of lawyer time into it, or whatever we had to do to try to figure out what our end of it was.
Yeah, exactly. So we didn't want to invest a lot of time without knowing, because it seemed like it was gonna be more work to get up in there than they really understood.
Right.
So.
But then in the meantime, they're doing all these other legal steps that really, I guess the thing, I don't really understand like how the public service board and all that stuff works. So I sort of wonder why they're going ahead with all of that without having some of their just logistical ducks lined up, and how that affects us, I don't really know.
I don't, I may be wrong, but I don't think it's terribly expensive step to go for the certificate of public good is necessary, but I think it's relatively low bar, so that's probably why they're going ahead with it. And they think that they can get up in there. I don't know.
So this initial conversation was Brett, this like before I was on it, so
Yeah.
I don't know necessarily what the beginning was like. I have had some feedback from the community, and it's also my feeling that the balloon that was put up was done at a time where not a lot of people knew about it, and if this would be a good time in their process to request another balloon and then appropriate advance warning of that, so that way the town can just really observe that and see what it would be like. The photos are photos, they show certain perspectives, so if that, I don't know if that's something that we can request ahead of time, or
I
it
think
seems
so.
like.
I think that's something John could ask Janelle about tomorrow, or Sean could ask you, right? Yeah,
I'm assuming it's Janelle, but it might be a contractor.
she is a contractor.
Yeah, but there's various contractors on this project, so.
Yeah, I think that, in my mind, that's a very simple
And just to
easy
clarify
task.
too, so we still need the electric department to say, yes, it's possible. They have not yet said that. Is that my understanding?
They have repeatedly said that AT&T has not demonstrated that they can meet their standard. And They've said that over and over again, and yet the AT&T folks, and it's hard to tell if there are just so many contractors involved that it's disorganized. I don't really know, but there seems to be a disconnect, which is why there's a meeting on site tomorrow to try to really get at whether they can meet the standard. And then, if they can meet the standard, the question really to the town, I think, so the Buffalo Mountain Trail is a public right-of-way. I don't think we have the same question about that we have about River Street. So, and I think as such, they can definitely use it as much as you or I could use it, I think. The question that will come to the select board and should come for any legal trail or class 4 road, if a citizen or entity wants to make changes or improvements or something physically to the road or trail, then they have to get select board permission. And so that is the point, I think, that we really weigh in. When, if they can meet Hardwick Electric standards and they need to modify the road somewhat to do that, then it comes back, or the trail, sorry, then it goes back to us for permission to do that. That's my understanding. Lenore, would you like to say something?
Yes.
Could you say your name, please?
And then so just hypothetically, if you did say they could make improvements, at what point would it go before the development review board?
I don't think it does go before the DRB, but I'm not positive about
It's in the
that.
bylaws. I mean,
It does?
telecommunications towers are in the bylaws.
So it does go, I am not, this is not my area of expertise.
Yes, there's a whole section in the bylaws that have to be met for a telecommunications tower.
Okay,
So is that before the select board, or that would be after the select board?
I don't think there's any particular order, is there?
I don't know.
I can check with our zoning
Sean,
administrator.
you.
I'll check with Kristen.
Sean will follow up with Kristen Lee, our zoning administrator. Emily, can you say your name, please?
Emily Leisner. I just wanted to know what kind of tower it is, what type of signal is it going to be putting out, and if there's been any environmental assessment of, what the impact is going to be on the flora and fauna in the area, and also the health effects of people living in the town. Because if it's I understand that this is a 5G capable tower, or that 5G Wi-Fi could be deployed from this tower. So is that going to be a 5G capable tower that they're putting up there?
So I think there are I think it's maybe important to distinguish between the tower, which is it's a monopole structure of 100 and, tell me, it's, I don't have it in front of me.
184.
180?
Which is above the permitted height in the bylaws.
Okay, so they're proposing a 180-foot monopole tower. So there's the tower, and then on the tower we put in antennas for cellular devices, I believe. And I believe the proposal is, one of the reasons they want to do this is they want to put up antennas for the FirstNet.
For what?
FirstNet?
FirstNet.
FirstNet.
What does that mean?
It's a program that came about after 9/11, and it's a way to provide first responders access to communications prioritized above the masses, so that first responders would still be able to communicate with each other in the event of emergency.
I see. Okay, so,
But they have their regular cell tower. I think FirstNet might be a separate, a separate antenna, but then they also have other room to rent stuff, I think they said also, so there could be other.
Right, so there could be
additional-
other, right, so AT&T has the antennas that they want to put on there, but then we think that there would still be room for them to lease other space on the tower. Three more spaces, so they'd be leasing that to other entities.
So I just want to know what is our community agency as far as deciding what kind of antennas get put on that tower, because there's commission reports that say that 5G is dangerous and that it's unhealthy. So if they're putting that up under the pretext of having it be for FirstNet responders, but then also putting space on there to deploy 5G antennas that just get activated without us knowing about it. I just want that to be okay. Yeah, I mean, I just want some transparency about what's actually going up there and want to know how much of a say we have in that. And if I understand that one of the ways that we are allowed to say that we don't want something is if it impacts the natural landscape in a certain way, or like if this is a trail and we don't want it on our trail, then that's one thing that we can say, we don't want it on our trail. If it's necessary for first responders, that's one thing, but if it's going to be something that's just going to be making the telecom industry a whole pile of money and damaging everyone's health in the area, including wildlife, I think that's something we don't want. So one of the reasons that I came today, especially for tonight, is also because the New Hampshire legislature just released a commission report about the effects of 5G, and they made several recommendations about 5G deployment. And they're trying to take their time in putting 5G infrastructure up around New Hampshire. So I wanted to share that document with the select board members so they're aware of some of the things that have to do with the FCC and just the health effects in general of 5G. So is there like a way that I can share that with the select board?
Yeah, you could email us a link, that would be great.
So how do I do that?
You could go to hardwickvt.org and you could find email addresses. You could send it to any one of us up here and then we can forward to the rest.
Well, I'm online right now, so I could forward this.
Okay.
So who am I forwarding it to? Is there an email address you can tell me?
Send it to me.
You could send it to sean.fielder@hardwickvt.org.
Okay, so it's Sean, S-E-A-N,
So,
Fielder at, okay, thank you, okay. All right, so this is, okay, so I got that. So I will forward that to him and ask him to share it with all the rest of the Hardwick Select Board.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that the community is aware of what's going on with this and, find out, make sure that everyone knows what's going up there and if there's any way that we can have some say as a community what we want there and what we don't want there.
Yeah, I mean, I think in short answer, I don't think we review the antennas that go on any towers.
Okay. So what about Hardwick Electric, or who does review it? How do we?
FCC does, I believe.
PUC, Public Utilities
Yeah, the
Commission.
Public Utilities Commission.
The Public Utilities Commission.
Again, it's in the bylaws. There has to be a full description of output frequency, number of channels, power output per antenna, and a coverage map. So, I mean, a lot of this is in our zoning bylaws.
Okay. All right.
One thing that we could just straight up ask is if it's going to be a 5G capable. My understanding is that that's pretty much just going to be in the cities and that it has to have an antenna, like every block or something, so having one tower. But I'd be interested to know, and I've had a few questions also, so I'd like to know. That's something you could just ask her straight up, because I thought she said that it wasn't.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to just make sure.
Well, no, I think that one's only 5G, that one's 4G for right now.
So
Is that
everybody,
only 5G?
That one, I believe, was gonna be 5G, and that one up there is still gonna be 4. Until they get around, then I guarantee you, they'll switch that one.
So which one is gonna be 5G?
I believe the new one that they're gonna be putting up,
So the new one that they're planning to put up on Buffalo Mountain is supposed to be 5G
I
capable?
believe it will be.
Okay, so how can we say no to that?
I don't think you can.
So you could, do you want
So,
to
can I
voice
address
the
that?
PUC?
Yeah, I mean, so everybody has it. The case number is 20-3175-PET, State of Vermont Public Utility Commission reference number there.
Can you just repeat that?
Yep, case number 20-3175-PET. This is the-
PET?
Yeah, Papa Echo Tango.
Okay.
And it's a notice of filing of petition. Anybody can offer comments. Obviously, what we'll do here at this level is, any questions that are coming from the select board, we can get those in order, but questions are due to the PUC by November 24th. November 24th.
November 24th?
Yes. And you can look at this particular item is available online, so anybody can see the petition for seeking certificate of public good.
Okay, so where do we go to see this?
The Public Utility, State of Vermont Public Utility Commission website. And you
Oh,
can search
okay.
the case number.
Okay, so we can go to the Public Utilities website, see that this petition has been filed,
Yeah,
and then we could say, I object, I live in Hardwick.
yeah,
You can comment, yeah.
yeah.
And you
Anybody can comment.
Okay. Okay, sure, yeah.
I have a question,
Yeah.
Rachel Kane. So there's a couple of towers in town now. Is this just like a business opportunity for a different company? Or is it contributing to the cell phone coverage in Hardwick now?
So that's a.
Or would that,
I
is
think
it an improvement, or is it just like a business opportunity for the people that are putting up the tower?
I think the answer is yes to both. I think it's a business opportunity. I think there seems to be, according to the coverage maps, a slight improvement in coverage. It's not dramatic. It would add this FirstNet capability, which would be good. I believe that they're not, they want to add it on a new tower. I can't remember. We did ask her why they couldn't or wouldn't add it on the existing tower, and I don't remember the answer. It's been like a year.
Is FirstNet a different system?
Yeah, it's like a prioritized system somehow, so that they're able to route traffic onto the FirstNet thing, and you have to subscribe to it, right?
It's a limited subscription. FirstNet is owned, my understanding is, I know it is, it's owned by AT&T, but it is specifically for first responders, so police, fire, EMS. It does give us priority access over cell phone channels.
But it could be on one of the existing towers as well.
I don't know why it wasn't. And we actually addressed, I know AT&T signed the contract, or the state signed a contract with AT&T as FirstNet to obtain the FirstNet, so that AT&T was awarded the contract for the state of Vermont to develop this FirstNet program. It's a nationwide program. AT&T, Verizon also has a program. AT&T won the contract for Vermont. In that contract, they had to significantly expand their cell coverage because we have, as you know, Greensboro. For this area, there's Greensboro. There's a lot of areas that have no cell phone coverage. AT&T told the state that they were meeting those contract issues. And then the Department of Public Safety reached out to a lot of us as first responder agencies and said, how is your coverage? And it's been terrible. And so they went back, got a grant for a study separate from AT&T, and found that there are significant deficits in cell phone coverage in the state, and that they had not met their contract.
But not in Hardwick, by the sound of it.
What's that?
But not in Hardwick, in the state, I think.
Everywhere. Hardwick was actually part of the study as well. So they found that they were actually not meeting at that point in time, so they're having to put up other towers and stuff to meet their contract with the state of Vermont.
Lenore, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, so just my research on FirstNet is that there's billions of dollars involved, and I believe that it has to be a new tower for them to be able to use FirstNet funds.
To use the money?
Anybody can, buy in, anybody can get the plan, and I think first responders are at the top of the heap, but everybody pays. It's just like paying your AT&T bill. This isn't going to give, it's not going to help heading towards Greensboro. It's not going to help heading towards Craftsbury. It's not going to help heading towards Wolcott. It's only going to give a tiny bit of coverage headed towards Woodbury, and not a lot. I don't know exactly what the goal is, other than there's money to be spent. Their first coverage maps, and I've heard they've been revised, and I haven't looked at them, but the first coverage maps, when they did their advance notice, showed like the entire neighborhood I live in near Hazen, the whole Hazen campus, that whole end of town not having any AT&T coverage, which is ridiculous. You can walk the entire Hardwick Trail system and never lose service.
The maps they gave us, I think, 3 separate maps that were at different kind of signal strengths. And so, yes, that whole area you're describing wasn't on the highest signal strength, but it was on the lower signal strength.
No, it was on their first maps, it was on the no signal strength.
Well, but they're more recent maps, I guess, that I've seen.
But anyway, I'm just saying, I'm just kind of answering Rachel's question with some of the research that I've done on FirstNet.
Well, they're certainly not doing it without a profit motive.
Right.
Right? And I guess also just, the way these things happen, we don't have a system in our state or in our country where we say, we haven't mapped out where towers should go to get the best coverage. And then when AT&T comes knocking, we open up our map and say, these are the places we need towers. That's not how it works. It's just totally random. They find a place where they think they can make a few bucks, and they negotiate with a landowner where they think they can put a tower, and there you go.
So it's the landowner that has to approach the DRB?
I'm not sure. So Sean's gonna find out from Kristen how that works. I don't know who has to approach.
Yeah. There's that question, and then if we as the town don't allow them to go up the trail for their access, because we're not talking about the towers are on private property.
Yeah.
So if we don't allow them to go up the trail, then they'll potentially still do it and just go a different way.
Yeah, that was what they said before. And we can't really, so when they originally approached us, they didn't even understand that it was a public right-of-way.
And
so
we
can't really tell them they can't go up there, I don't think.
No, we just about improvements, I guess it'd be.
Right, I think we weigh in on the improvements.
But there are still a lot of hurdles as far as the electric department is involved.
Yes, last we knew, there were a lot of hurdles for the electric department. Yeah.
So are we really required to do anything now? We can just wait, because maybe the meeting tomorrow sounds like it might eliminate a lot of that stuff.
I think this just came up again because the most recent communication we'd had from them, they were poking around looking at other sites around town. And then now they finally come back and said, no, we're definitely going to pursue the Buffalo Mountain site.
I had another question.
Yeah.
So the trail, what is it, class 4 now?
It's a legal trail.
I beg your pardon?
The classification is legal trail. It's a step below a class 4.
Oh, right, so it would, I guess, have to be improved.
Probably. That's what we'll find out.
A ways to access the
Yeah.
the actual site. I mean, so would we have to then maintain that? So we're upgrading that for the town highway?
No, we would not have to maintain that. So we would leave it classified as a legal trail, and if they need it upgraded and maintained to a certain standard, they would have to have request select board approval to do that, but then it would be on their dime.
So we wouldn't be maintaining that road at all?
I don't think Tom's raising his hand saying he's gonna plow it.
What's the distance they'd be using?
It's to Robert Patton's Sugar House, and I don't have the map in front of me. 1,400 feet, Sean recalls?
About quarter mile, something like that.
Yeah, it's about 1,400 feet, I think, is what I recall.
I don't know if you've been up there before, you know there's that for sure.
And that gets them about halfway there, according to their maps. Then they turn, as they're heading uphill, they make a hard right, and they go out about the same distance, more or less following contour lines, I think. I think it's fairly flat from there.
They have, I don't know if it's in that link that you gave already, but they gave us basically a map of how it was fit together and stuff. It's gotta be in there. If you go see, you know.
Yeah, I was just recap, because it's been a long evening.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, this all is also in the minutes from, is this going to be in the minutes from this meeting, the AT&T information? Or it has been previously and it hasn't changed? I'm just wondering, you can find the packet that AT&T has sent on the Hardwick website, right?
Well, you could attach it to the minutes for this meeting.
So just so you can, so the public can see.
Where are we gonna put those? Yeah.
It already exists, but it's
Yeah,
way
it's
back.
already an attachment from this
Yeah.
last year. There's a bunch of attachments
Yeah.
for AT&T. Same
So
thing.
so if the public has questions, there is a lot of information from them. We talked about, so there's a walkthrough tomorrow. The process is, we still haven't heard from the electric department.
Right, so the site meeting tomorrow is largely for the electric department to communicate their needs, yeah.
Yeah, just point of clarification, I talked to the electric department, yesterday morning, and as of yesterday morning, no, we haven't seen that they can meet our construction standards.
Right. And then Sherry's question was about, is the DRB for us or for the landowner? Which is a good question.
Not us, or whether it's AT&T or the landowner.
Or
right?
AT&T or landowner,
Yeah.
right, excuse me. And then also if we can have another balloon simulation, if that's possible.
Right, that's a question that Sean's gonna take tomorrow, right, Sean?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we're at in the process.
Yeah.
We can't really, okay. I
And
just wanna understand.
and that they've filed with the PUC for the certificate of public good, and that is available, that information's available on the PUC website.
So what, is that a 30-day process that they filed?
Sean said,
November
24th.
November 24th is the deadline to submit questions or comments.
And then what happens after November 24th?
You'd have to ask the Public Utility Commission now.
Okay.
Have to ask who? The Public Utility Commission.
Okay, I think that's what we can do for tonight. So we're gonna move on to, the night is still young, and we're gonna move on to budgets, right? Item 4. So, oh boy, that is far away.
How's your vision here?
Not good.
Well, it's in your pocket.
I know. And if it hasn't changed, I printed out what you sent before.
Correct. Okay. So let's just get started. We're gonna start with Bill.
Casey, you could zoom in a little bit more maybe?
That's okay.
On the far right lower, maybe just a little. That might help a little bit. Then you just scroll back to the left.
Yeah, that's the best I can do.
That's good.
All right, so, actual in the far left, the current year's budget, and then the proposed, we're working on fiscal year 2022, starts July 1st of 2021. And so I didn't put a lot of explanations on these because a lot of them are just regular sort of increases. So starting with Memorial Building, very nominal increase, about $230. The decrease is really kind of in our fuel oil, sort of aligning it with previous year expenditures and still planning for a little bit of an increase because we kind of had a mild winter in 20. So we didn't come down all the way, but we came down a little bit from the 10,000. So that's pretty flat overall. Public safety building, again, quite flat, the difference of $377 there. Really not a lot of change.
Casey, just hold for a second in case anybody has a question on a given line item as it's on the board.
I think everybody had time to review.
All right,
Did
good.
everybody have time to review before the meeting?
Okay?
Okay.
Sorry. Just wanna make sure.
All right.
Okay.
But this is, and just to keep in mind, this is like a
First run
pass
through.
part of the budget.
We're gonna
Lots
do
of time.
sections. We're gonna do like 4 or 5 sections. We'll do 4 or 5 next time until we get to the
One question I had about the public safety building is it needs a new roof. And do we
That's
have
in
this-
capital.
Okay.
It's in capital. We'll talk about that. Fire station, aligning the fuel oil, which created a pretty good decrease, even with a 4,800, even if it goes up, we did 6,000, which is fine, so that showed a decrease. Townhouse, the reason we had 2,000 was because of the winterizing, but once we did it once, we learned that there isn't all those additional costs. So the second time we did it, it was only a couple $100,
This
so.
is to shut down the
Yeah,
heating system
and that's the
for
towns, like
winter
to winterize it, so, we didn't need it to be that high, so we aligned that to where it should be.
I did have a question about that, just because we know now with the new
Correct.
facilities condition report that there are some specific things that, maintenance things that we need to take a look at, like why wouldn't we?
Would those be in regular or capital though?
I don't know.
Like, cause, I mean, if it's something that's like $3,000 to $5,000, that would probably be like a capital expenditure, not in the regular maintenance budget. This
Okay.
is more like,
Because I didn't know whether it went down because we just didn't really do anything over there this year at all, so.
no, this is,
Based on the
like-
glycol thing?
No, this is because of, so it cost us like $1,800 the first time we winterized it. We started closing it up and like shutting everything off. But then we found out that it doesn't cost that every year. It's only just,
When you're saying the first time we winter, do you mean the year that we switched it over to
the
glycol?
glycol?
And we had a fair amount of work done on the heating system?
Or because we changed plumbers?
No, it's a changeover going to the glycol, so you just throw some valves. He was here yesterday, threw a few valves, in 1 hour he's done.
right, so it wasn't all the initial
You have
work.
to purge the system and all that.
Okay, so just to
Okay.
clarify, so it used to cost more before we had the glycol, and then the year that we had the changeover to glycol, there was an expense there, because I think he also worked on some of the heat exchangers and stuff at the same time. He
Well,
found
they're
other stuff.
basically disconnected up there.
Right, so he
which
worked
is
on a
hard
bunch
to
of
figure out.
stuff, but then it sounds like, so now, this line is mostly covering that winter, spring changeover, and it's now very simple.
Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly correct.
Which is
Right.
great.
This
I mean,
doesn't
it was
really
a long
pertain
time
to
since we
like,
thought-
I mean, there are things
Big
that are maintenance
projects.
that have been deferred for years,
Yeah,
like the putting ledge in the path or clearing the, water mitigation stuff that isn't, that hasn't really been in the budget. I just hate to see what we've had in there go away when there are things that have been deferred for years. I
yeah.
think,
But I think there's a question of, to me, it's what should be in these budgets are things that are like regular expenses that you're just gonna, or they're just things you do all the time or every year, and things that are like more project-based that have a longer lifespan should be in a capital budget.
Okay.
But, so I don't know, I actually
Okay.
I don't know enough about the townhouse to know if we should be spending more on a regular basis, or, I mean,
Yeah,
like,
I
I don't know.
Yeah, and that those heat exchange things are disconnected and apparently not functioning at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's no pipe that exists from one to the other. So I don't know, yeah, maybe I'm just off.
The existing furnace system does not have the BTU capacity to run the exchangers on the second floor. That's why they're disconnected.
Yeah,
I
so
thought he
they maybe
did
were
a lot of
just,
work on those.
No, they're disconnected. They're out.
the coils kept, bursting or whatever.
Oh,
And so
really?
then they would end up having to be replaced. And so I
Okay.
think when we changed to the newer plumber, it didn't make sense to have them connected, which is fine.
Okay.
So there's just a few things that are just kind of hanging that we don't really know what. But it's fine. We don't have to take a lot of time on it tonight.
Okay.
We can just leave it the way it is
Okay,
and see.
Let's roll.
Yeah. Whatever.
Okay, so depot, difference of $8, really no change.
Yeah.
Senior center, this budget starts July 1st, 2021, so we anticipate that building will be gone at that point. That's why it's 0.
yep,
And Yellow Barn, we just gotta continue to pay that insurance, we can't not insure it.
Right.
So, though nothing else is on, there's no utilities, there's no nothing, but we have to have insurance on the building, so. Okay, so then we'll go to, what do I do next in the packet? Capital Fire, I believe is the next one.
yeah,
Really nothing exciting about this. I mean, basically, the current fiscal year we're in, 2021, is the first year that we started doing a separate capital fund for fire. As you can see, we have a schedule for our current bond on E1 and the bond that passed and we anticipate will start in 2022. And then we have a schedule of replacement for all of these items, looking at increasing it $5,000 over last year. Questions?
Why do all these fund set-asides end in $423? Why isn't it 70,000? Why is it 70,000?
It's because of, we used to just do, the bond payment amount, which
Yeah.
was like probably $423, and we just added whatever, like $45,000, $50,000, something like that.
Can we
And-
make those all even increments of $5,000, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Sorry.
Let it go.
Well, it's just, I don't
A
know.
little bit easier to
Well,
calculate,
I can't change 21 because that's already set, but I can change this to 75 and go there.
Cool, thank you.
That's good.
Okay. Then we go to, I have next in the packet, is equipment, I believe.
You're on
Yeah.
equipment now? I can't see that board,
Yeah,
sorry.
capital equipment.
Oh, whoops, I gotta make it bigger, sorry.
No, I'm looking at the hard copy.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a hard copy in the packet, so, a couple things I wanna note. So, looking at just increasing from last year's appropriation, only 5,000, but in future projections, gonna need to look at going up 10 and then 15,000 for a little bit to, otherwise we get down here to this 2680, that would be negative if we don't start going up a little bit more than $5,000 a year. So from 21 to 22, we're going from 175 to 180, then we'll need to go up 10,000, then 15,000, and then I think I got it back down to 10,000 increase per year, just to kind of keep it on the straight and narrow. One thing we've built into here is replacing the skid steer that will be, it's almost 5 years old, and we have put a pile of money into it in the last 10 months. And so I built that into the schedule, talking with Tom, and most trucks are typically on an 8-year schedule. We'd like to try to do dump truck 1 in 2022 instead of 2023. It does work in the schedule, so we've built that in there to trade that truck in 2022.
So skid steer, the only skid steer we have is down at the sewer plant, right?
It's a tool cat, the
Oh,
tool
okay,
cat.
tool cat.
Yeah, it used to be a skid steer, so.
Yeah, that's true, it did.
That's
Yeah.
been cycled out, just so you're aware, the old skid steer.
Oh, the one down there?
That's out of our possession now.
Yeah.
So we don't have one at all anymore?
Not there.
No.
The tool cat.
Just the tool cat. There was a lot of discussion about that tool cat. Let's not do that again.
That's fun.
Can I ask a really quick question?
Sure.
So
Speak for yourself.
You guys are new to this?
Yeah.
So, for the police cruiser,
Yes,
why is it a different amount every year?
because we anticipate the price of them will go up. So
Okay,
we
what
have
is it?
four cruisers that are on a 5-year schedule. So 2021, there wasn't one to be traded.
Okay.
And then we have to sort of figure in cost of increased cost and equipment. The $30,000 is a different car. We have like an unmarked car that the detective drives, and it's like a smaller sedan that's not as fit out as the others, which is why it's so much less.
Okay. That makes sense. So we're basically trading a cruiser every year, but in 5-year increments. Is that what
One
you're
gets
saying?
traded, but because we only have 4, there's a
Right,
year
okay.
off every
Okay.
5th, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Great, thank you.
it's a cycle, yes. Any other questions?
I was curious about the loader one, grader one column. How come, so there's just two pieces of equipment in the same column?
Correct, and I think the intention for that is that must be a bond payment that's been there for a while, but the cost of those two alone is $500,000-600,000 probably, so it would have to be a bond.
Okay, so anticipating a bond in 2024, payment of $50,000.
Well, what we've done in the past, Lucent is leasing.
Oh, so that'd be a lease? Okay.
So like a payment, it could be like a payment, or if it's a lease, then it wouldn't be a bond, but yeah, so that would be like a payment basically on those two pieces of equipment. What a grader's
Well,
like
probably just one, right? It's
400.
not both equipment we would lease, right?
He says both.
Both.
And they both get replaced at the same time?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's about 500,000 all told for,
Yeah, probably around that.
Yeah, okay.
already.
Yep, okay. And then I have road schedules next.
This one's kind of a mess.
Okay.
So, Tom, last time we looked at budgets last year, somebody was predicting that it was gonna be like 360,000 to pave Center Road, and now we're predicting like 700,000 to pave Center Road.
Yeah, give or take.
Did it get longer?
Huh? No, the last time we paved it, we actually got grant for that,
It didn't,
for Center Road.
Will we get state grant for it?
Uh,
It's class 2 or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's why next year, we
Yeah.
might have to flip that and not do East Hardwick. I talked to Shauna, and if we want to pay those ourselves and not get funding from Shauna, because
Which are those?
Cedar Street and Belfry Road are class 2 roads, so we
Okay.
get state aid funding for that.
Yeah.
So if we decide to do these ourselves and pay for it ourselves out of our own pocket without any state aid money, we're gonna have to boost that up to about 250, 260,000.
which
Pave those
year?
roads next year.
22.
So why would we do it without?
Because Shauna said there was no, state aid money given out this year.
Oh,
So
really?
that kind of boosts everybody back another year. So we were in the loop to get it next year.
Yeah.
But since no one did get it this year, so now we're
We're
pushed
back
back
a
another
year.
year.
I would like to share something.
Yeah.
We actually just got in, because there was no highway grants, the legislature passed a fund of money to get distributed among all the towns. So we got in a payment of $38,000 last week as it's called a highway supplement for our highway budget because of no grants this year. So.
Huh.
And that just goes to what we've already done, basically?
Yeah, I mean,
Just
yeah,
like
it's
I
a
said,
revenue
okay.
that will offset, yeah. I mean,
So, Tom, are you proposing then that you're gonna swap like 2022 and 2023 paving or something like that?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Then that way the following year, you know,
Yeah.
like Shauna said, we should
Yeah.
be able to get state aid money, which should help us out. Like she said, we can get up to 175,000, help us pave that up there.
and then with a year that we are scheduled to do Center Road, we'd be able to get state funding for that as well.
Well, I don't know, you know, because like she said, once you use that, you kind of go down the bottom of the list and the other ones that are using it.
Yeah,
So it's kind of a cycle.
Yeah, in the max, no matter what you do, the max is 175? Okay. And the 700,000 is an estimate for us paying the whole thing, or that's with 175 from the state?
You mean the 700?
Yeah, sorry.
That's for us.
And the state also would have to pitch in 175? So you think it's actually gonna cost almost 900,000?
Well, it's gonna be close.
Is it?
And so you'll
But you
notice
balance out
that
if it works
I
out.
started bumping up. We were only increasing about $10,000 a year, and in order to, and it's still showing negative, I changed it to go up 25,000.
If we do get the 175 though, that year, it's roll, wherever you are right now for this, what's the roll for the 700,000?
For 2020?
No, it wouldn't matter because he's saying the 700 is still our portion, and then we get 175 covered. The 700 is still our portion, so that's not gonna change.
If the cost is 900,000, we're only gonna be off by $4,000. They're gonna offset that negative 171 is my point, with the $175,000 grant.
I don't think so.
No, because it's gonna go to the paving company.
Say again?
No, because that goes to the paving company, not into us. Like, that would, you know what I mean? Like, the project's 875,000, so 700 comes from us, the 175 comes from them to the paving company or whatever, so it won't help us
So this,
there.
so
Oh,
this.
gotcha, sorry, yeah, I see.
So this capital schedule definitely has a problem, because what we want to do is we want it to never get below zero, as you look in the far right column.
Yeah.
So we'll have to, I'm not going to propose that we change it tonight, but we should.
I already went to 25,000, we could certainly, like, if we did,
Yeah, I don't think we need to change it tonight,
Yeah.
but I think we need to think about,
even 30,000 doesn't help us
Tom, would
right
you
now.
consider doing Center Road over 2 years to help this problem?
well, the thing
It's
is,
not
they have to
economical
be,
necessarily, you know.
you know, you don't have enough, you'd have to do it like in 2025 and 2028.
Or is there an opportunity, like,
That
to
doesn't make
do
sense.
less in 23 and 24, like, right
Yeah.
here? I mean, I don't know, so I'm just gonna change that
We
back
have
to
to not
25
pave
for
it
now.
all in 23 and 24. Anyway,
Okay.
we'll have to figure it out.
Alright.
So Hardwick Street is planned to be paved after 2029, is that why there's nothing in there?
We paved it pretty recently, didn't we?
Yeah, three years ago.
That long?
3-4 years ago now, yeah.
Because you wouldn't need it until after 2030, is what you're thinking?
Well, Until it starts falling apart.
Yeah.
I guess I'm getting at, do we need to put money in for Hardwick Street in this, somewhere in there?
I'll just say that I really hope Cedar Street holds it till 2023.
Kind of hoping it just kind of slides and we can block it off.
Well, technically, it could be done next summer, next July.
Which one's Cedar?
Because we'll be after July 1st.
The one that gets out past, Gibby.
To get to the post
Oh, Getty,
office.
by Getty,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. stuff.
Okay. Any other questions on this? I know we'll have to
Yeah,
revisit
we'll have
it,
to deal with
but
that later,
Okay.
problematic.
capital general, so starting from the left column, the balance as of 6/30, then you can add what we appropriated in our current fiscal year to sort of give you an idea of what the balances are now. And we're looking at, let me make this bigger for you, the yellow column, proposed amounts for the fiscal year we're working on. Whoops, I went too far, sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna scroll to the bottom first, just to see, only increasing $2,500. I think we have some stuff to discuss on this, particularly in our buildings category. So we had an unexpected repair to our elevator here at the Memorial Building this year, which is why we have this fund. That's great, we were able to fix it. But we also have roof needs for this building. Sean, do you want to talk about what you've seen for estimates on that?
Yeah, for the roof repairs, we had 2 contractors look at it. What we heard was you're looking at $25,000 for the slate repair for the existing condition. Soffit paint was something that had been talked about a number of years ago, and one of the contractors said, well, if you're going to be doing the slate, we could also work on that. They do work in both of these professions. The number they came back with for the soffit paint was about $6,000 or $7,000. So, you know, we know it's pretty significant numbers. And also, had Efficiency Vermont here about a month ago. They had some suggestions on, you know, you could do some weatherization work here. We could investigate doing some interior high performance inserts for winter time to help keep the draft down. You know, I don't have pricing on that, but you know, we know the roof, you know, in itself is pretty significant. So we don't have that ready to go as of now. And we can't let roofs go. I mean, we're 1 year behind on our public safety building on the roof repair, and it makes me nervous because you just don't know what problems you're leading to not having a secure roof.
So you'll notice we added 5,000. I really bumped up the Memorial Building just given knowing what we need to do for work. I added quite a bit more to the highway garage. We know that needs work. I did propose a reduction to the library, knowing that they're doing this construction project for a couple years, hoping maybe we could just not stop putting into that because it's always ongoing, but shifting some of that money towards the buildings that need it more. Because with the construction, presumably a lot of their efficiencies and issues are going to be addressed. And so I did reduce that to 2 as a suggestion. Also, Cary Road property, we did a great deal of cleanup work, the guys did, and you know, we have time on that, so looked at taking some money out of that category and again shifting, prioritizing what needs to be done. And I guess that's my feeling, is that we need to think about what needs it the most.
So just so I'm reading this correctly, Memorial Building currently is -8? Is that from last year?
No, it would really be -$400 because it went, at the end of the year, it was -$7,900, but then come July 1st, we allocated $7,500. So you really add $630 balance plus your 21 balance.
So the goal is to get basically the Memorial Building balance, the highway garage balance, and the public safety balance up. Well, I guess mainly the highway and Memorial up by next year.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
they're high priority, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
just based on immediate roofing needs, sort of. I mean, all of our buildings kind of need stuff, you know? They're aging, so.
Casey, one thing that I think, given what we know about the public safety building,
Yeah.
I almost think that's gonna have to be doubled too, at a minimum.
You're talking about the roof?
Well, the roof is a definite, that, and I don't think it's gonna be less than 25,000 personally, you know, for that roof repair.
I think we get a lot of blue tires cheaper.
Those may go on before next year, because I came in that last big rainstorm that we had on the weekend. I came in and everything on my desk was soaked, the printer was soaked, and.
Really?
Yeah, luckily the computer tower is under a table, so that didn't
So
get
the
soaked.
roof is leaking.
Oh, yeah.
We gotta
That's-
do that.
We knew that.
Like
That's the second time.
last year.
So anyway,
Tom's gonna go put a
buildings,
tarp up there.
But we only have 13,000 in there, and that's supposed to pay for the roof.
we have
Well, we have
18.
13 plus the
We have 18.
5 currently, and then we'll put another, we're scheduled to put another 5 in July 1st, which would make, they're about 23,000. And we just found out about a furnace issue in on the senior side of the building, which is a $6,000 to $7,000 problem, and that's gonna have to be fixed next fall as well, so
How big a problem is that, you say?
that's a big problem.
We gotta get it
Oh,
fixed.
big one. You didn't have a number, okay.
Yeah.
He said 6 or 7.
6 to 7 is kind of.
Oh, okay.
And that will have to be done in that furnace next fall. They just came and cleaned the furnaces, and that's how we found out about that issue. We're good for this year, but it's gonna have to be done for next year.
And that heats the whole building?
No, that he's the seniors, where the seniors side is.
Oh.
There's actually 2 furnaces in that.
Really?
In that building. There's one that heats the old building where the PD part is, and then there's actually one in the attic that heats the new section of the building, I guess, the add-on that they did, and that one's going to be done at repair for next fall. So I mean, I don't know, I don't think a roof is gonna be less than 25,000, and we've got 23.
Careful,
in
you're
there.
setting the bid prices now.
And, you know, when you look at building cost materials and what they've gone to this year already, I don't see them coming down by summer. And then we know we have almost a $7,000 expense in that we just learned about as of yesterday, so.
But just so I understand what we're looking at correctly, this is what we're putting into the capital improvements for these buildings. If there's a need like that needs to happen next year, that can go somewhere else in the budget, is that
So,
correct?
no,
No.
what we would do is
That's
we
where
would,
this goes.
it comes out of here, but
Okay.
another way to think about it is if you just go right down to the bottom, the capital improvement fund has, whatever, $419,000 in it or something, right? So, or did have it at June 30th, 2020, then we added some more, and we're gonna keep adding about 120,000 to it according to this schedule. So, when something critical comes up, we can just spend money out of the whole pot. But then that's why you're seeing like the memorial building went negative and the highway garage went
Okay.
negative.
Because we
Okay.
sort of have like a guideline, like
Right, so if we
we
know,
break it down, but if something happens, like we were still able to use
Okay.
funds to do the elevator, but that, what was earmarked for Memorial Building is technically negative in our
That makes sense.
guideline, I guess, but
but if we know that, say, the public work safety building is going to need $25,000, is now the time that we change the FY 2022 line to be $25,000? Or do we leave it at 5 and then just make that adjustment based on, I'm just trying
we
to
wouldn't need
understand.
to go that high
how we-
because there's already 18 in there.
Okay, so I just
But
wanna
we
make sure
might
that I
wanna do more than
understand. Okay.
5, and so that's kind of the discussion that we'll have to talk
Okay.
about is this really enough for buildings, knowing
Okay.
the work? This
Yeah,
is a draft,
My
this is,
recommendation on that was that I believe we're gonna need the 5 that we're planning on, you know, for what we're projecting. But as of what we learned yesterday, I think we should add another 5 into that.
Yeah.
For that projection is what I'm recommending.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I understand the
So,
Thank you.
yeah, so another way to think about it, I guess, is that it's a capital fund that it's the capital fund that has $419,538 at the end of the last fiscal year. And then we added, the current fiscal year, we put in another $119,500. The question is, for next fiscal year, how much do we put in total? And the rest of this sheet is the whole top part of the sheet is really just trying to help us figure out how big an allotment to put towards this general category. So it probably does make sense to work through here and be like, try to align some of these lines, like the memorial building and the public safety building with known upcoming expenses.
And let's not forget, the Public Works garage is from 1972, so without us doing a replacement, we know that line item's gonna be going up moving forward.
That was actually a pretty good year. We covered
Yeah.
it pretty well. So
Yeah.
We need to, well, I think that the building is beyond its useful life and we really just need to replace
We
it.
know that.
So I mean, I see a big bump in that in the highway garage. Is that specific to some need?
See.
Well, so a future highway garage, I guess, would be,
Okay, so, yeah, so
and it's
for a new
negative now,
building.
so, like,
I mean, if
for,
we're trying to actually cover the costs we know about right now, then, it's not enough in the memorial building line item or public safety line item. It's not
Right,
enough.
I asked about the highway garage.
Yeah.
Um,
Tom's gotta answer that one.
starting to build up for,
So that's starting
Building up
to,
is potentially leveraging toward some grant writing
Yeah,
maybe, or
yeah.
That's the
other
USDA
possibilities.
Community Facilities Grant I mentioned also
Yeah.
earlier today.
okay.
Tonight, excuse me.
And what is that generally, what's the match on that?
It's the way it has been working with USDA, Town of Hardwick gets on a community facilities grant, it's a 40% grant.
Okay.
We can also include some in-kind in that too. There's like a percentage of in-kind and dollars, right? Anyway, there's like,
Other ways to, yeah.
If it's $1 million
But it's a huge
project,
thing, yeah.
then I'll just say it, we'd be bonding for 600,000 unless
Yeah.
we can't find the money some other way.
Right.
yep.
Right, Tom?
Yeah, I think any in-kind and that sort of thing is gonna be relatively small.
So do we need to add the swinging bridge to this? Is this where we add the swinging bridge? Or is that like a emergency thing that shows up somewhere else?
No, I don't think that shows up anywhere else. I think that would be in
public
Bridge,
works
bridge
section.
fund, that would be
Sidewalks.
bridge,
We got bridge line item.
bridge.
but that's for highway bridges, right? Or does it matter? It's just,
Well, we're just gonna need to pick a place that
Okay.
we could choose to add a line. I guess,
There's that question, then there's the question from Wiz earlier today about the potentially adding a line for,
Access, right?
the rail trail.
We have bike path on here already in Public Works.
yeah, but the LVRT is different from bike path, no?
I don't know, what,
Is it,
No,
or
that's
isn't
what
it?
it's considered, yeah.
yeah,
So her question was about adding something for maintenance on facilities along the LVRT
yeah,
or trailheads and
yeah.
other.
it looks like we have 10, if bike path includes that, then we have about 10,000 in there right now.
Yeah, just for the good of the conversation, remember, we're still evaluating and trying to determine a reallocation of our LVRT USDA grant.
Right.
And basically the plan at this stage would be, we would be creating additional parking and access somewhere in town. I mean, that's the general focus right now, right, Eric?
I think so.
Yeah.
And the bike path is pretty much zero now because we have a 20% notch on this Creamery Road LVRT, which I've been funding out of there. So there isn't anything left in the bike path as of right now. And I've started using sidewalk because it's the same, same idea. So yeah, so bike path will need to get built back up because it really
Or
doesn't.
bike path can actually go, well, I don't know, or it could get repurposed. Originally, that bike path that line was meant to accumulate money to match the federal earmark that was given to Hardwick when,
2006.
2006 to build a bike path, which we never did, but we did manage to spend most of the money, and the last bit of it was the Creamery Road project.
Right. Right, and once this Creamery Road is done, that's it.
That's pretty much closed out. I
Yeah.
don't think there's much left in that earmark
What
anymore.
is that term, multimodal? transportation.
I think we'll have a little
something
bit
so that
left in
we
the
keep that
earmark,
line for
We could keep
things
that
like
line,
the
sure.
pedestrian bridge or
Sure. Yep.
other, you know,
Yeah,
like other stuff.
So the path itself will be maintained by the state, so we don't need to put anything for that, the LRT.
correct.
That's correct.
So, but some of the access facilities would be stuff we'd have to deal with potentially.
Yeah, and I think maybe where Wiz was going with that is we want to make sure that we are, that we capitalize, that we're user-friendly, that we capitalize on the use of that trail where possible and draw people to our downtown and allow Hardwick to be a
So
friendly
it
place
might,
to get on
yeah,
and off.
so it might be a fund for additional signage.
Yeah,
The green lane downtown, for
Yeah.
bike and peds.
So some of the stuff right away, the grant you're talking about, we could use that to initially put the stuff up there, but then we need this just to maintain it, is that what you're thinking?
well, yeah, so I think we ought to have that discussion when Wiz is here to be sure what she was
Okay.
thinking, but yeah, we have that, the USDA grant that we were originally planning to use to improve the trail from the health center out to East Hardwick, but now the state is gonna do all that next summer anyway. And so USDA has said we can pivot on that and we can do, trail side stuff like parking, trailhead. We could also use it to improve, the spur trail that heads up towards Woodbury or something like that.
I just have one more question about, we're in Public Works now, right? Is that?
Sure, yes.
So for the road signs and crosswalks, if we've got 4,000, we're putting in another 2, is that where the planning commission recommendations fall? And is that enough for what?
Yeah, we already
those-
spent that though, because we bought $7,000
Right,
worth
so
of
we're,
lights,
so that's more like a negative,
Yeah,
3.
it's just that I did have money as of 6:30 and then we added to it, but then we just spent
okay.
most of it.
Casey, didn't we talk about this though? There's a capital line item isn't there another place where crosswalks are referenced? Wasn't there 2 different areas here?
Well, in the general highway, there is crosswalks, but that's like line painting and crosswalks, remember?
Okay. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there
So,
probably
yes.
isn't
Yeah.
special funding, although we do have the sidewalk fund, which is probably, things like bump outs and signage.
So when we bought those signs, we split the expense between, we did it goes like 7,100, I did like 5,000 from the road signs / crosswalks, and I did like 2,000 from sidewalk, because
Yep.
it fits, but
Yep.
we didn't want to drain the road signs and crosswalks completely, so there's maybe like $1,000 left in that right now, but.
And so road signs are everything from highway signs to, if we wanted to implement the planning commission recommendations for parking and new welcome to Hardwick signs, there are potentially a lot of signs in our not too distant future based on that recommendation. I just want to make sure that's coming out of this line item, all of those things? Okay.
I think so, I don't think we have another place that, and so we would need to,
Want to beef that up.
unless
I don't think we
Tom
have
pulls list, when you buy signs,
I
Tom,
just
do they
wanted
come
to look.
from a regular budget?
Yeah, we
or
only
capital?
we only have $500 in the regular highway budget for road signs, so it's, yeah.
So it's coming out of here.
Yeah, so what we, for things we wanna do, we need to fund it somehow. And it isn't, it'll be a new expense.
What about brush cutting, we have 0 in that?
We moved it to regular,
We just moved, we're gonna do 5,000 in the regular highway budget every year. We will wanna use this up in capital and then it can go away, but there was still a balance in there. So when we can use this up, but then it's just gonna be, we discussed last year, just be 5,000 a year in the regular highway budget. So you'll see it there.
because we decided we're just gonna, that part of regular operations will be to spend about that much on brush cutting every year. So it's not really capital in the sense that we're not saving up for it. Right?
Are we ready to move on to general government? Really make
Yeah.
any changes here. I did decrease the records restoration vault door primarily because of the grant that we got, which took care of a huge chunk of the, getting the records like online. That was part of records restoration, so I cut that down, and we have enough in there now to do the vault door and some additional records restoration. So I did lower that, plus $4 of every page that they get for recording automatically has to go into this, so that also is added, so I lowered that. And it could potentially, if we need to pull some money into another category, we could probably go down a little bit on that too, just because of the $4 a page. But
So that's a case where that's not money that we can move around, right? Like that, there are other categories here that we can shuffle as needed,
correct,
but
that one, no, that money, yeah, you have to, at the end of the year, they actually put it in a separate account for me at the end of the year. I move it from the general right into capital,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and I think this past year it was about $7,100, so, yeah. So, yeah, so increased only 2,500 overall with a little bit of switching between categories. And we have to kind of think about prioritizing needs and if we want to increase more. But this is a draft.
Yep.
So let's go to, I think I did PD next, is in the packet next, I believe?
Highway is
Please?
what I have.
No, highway, okay.
I don't know.
Got both on my
Okay, so, I had sent you guys some notes too, on stuff. Scrolling down to the bottom, 1.36%. So we have, just kind of based on history. The sewer operator, what that is that if the sewer operator spends time plowing, then highway has to reimburse the sewer fund. But based on recent history, it's not going to be that high. So that's why we lowered that. Social Security is just a percentage of salaries, so I aligned that. What else? I mean, health insurance, we like had an addition, status changes, regular increases.
What about overtime? It looks like the last actual was 22, and then this year we budgeted.
We had a
33.
really mild winter.
Okay.
And we don't have any idea what,
Okay.
21 is gonna look like, so we basically just came down from the 21 budget to
Okay.
31.
Got
So we
it.
did a decrease.
It was a mild winter. Okay.
It was, that
Got it.
we did not have as much overtime at all. But normally, like the year before that, it was up around 30, so.
Really? Was it really mild?
I don't
Didn't we
know.
have a lot of
That's the
snow?
same for mud
I
season.
thought so. I thought we did have a
No,
lot
why
of
it was
snow.
so low last year.
What are we looking at?
Did it just snow on the right days or
That's just an
something?
Because it wasn't
You
a
just have to-
terrible mud season, was that?
Well,
It seemed
just
like we
they
had a
would-
lot of
they didn't
snow,
have
didn't we have a lot of
Lingered
snow?
on.
Yeah.
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 I went more and more every year, but it's just because I'm getting older. I don't know.
So like diesel fuel, we have a really good rate. Prices have come down and sort of aligning it with spending, so we felt we could come down on that. Equipment repair and expense based on experience, we keep going way over, which is, like I said, one of the reasons why we're gonna try to trade truck one before we get into all those expenses.
What's the difference between equipment repair and equipment expense?
Equipment expense is like your plow blades, your tires,
Okay.
stuff that the truck needs.
Yeah,
So just, it's more like regular maintenance and as opposed to repair.
right.
So our last actual for equipment expense was 49,000, and we're proposing budgeting for 40. This current year, we've only budgeted 36.
Okay, well, the only thing is that it only shows repair and expense on here, but I actually have multiple GL accounts for each truck so that I can track how much we spent on truck one, truck two,
Yeah,
truck
yeah.
three, truck four. I add up the total
Yeah.
and just divvy it up among them. So that's like the best, closest you can get. The split could be slightly different. We usually always just do those two categories equal. 36 and 36, 40 and 40. The ultimate goal is you don't want to go over 80 between the two.
Looks like last year though, we spent 90.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we want to go over 80?
Well, but we had, like, the tool cat was like 15 grand in repairs.
Oh my God, really?
So if you back that out, then,
Holy cow.
yeah, so it's,
Time to throw it away.
It's like anything else, it's,
The toolkit was supposed to be so great.
it's, well, sure,
It's
it's
used.
like anything
I know,
there is. I mean,
it's a lot of
if-
wear.
If you wanna go back to a regular Bobcat, that's fine, but you're gonna get the salt in front, it's gonna
I
eat
know.
it up. just
It
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
other one
It
did.
just tears
I
it
know.
up.
It's,
and they don't make stuff like they
It's
used
not.
to.
Do we have
it's
enough?
not the cost of, a radiator or something like that. It's the cost of a guy doing it at $125 to $130 an hour.
Yeah.
We might have parts that are only, $500,
Yeah.
but we're gonna have labor costs that is $3,000. That's where the expense is on these things.
Yeah.
Just like the dump trucks.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Right.
I mean, if you look at the repair bill, it's like, oh, come on now, it's only $1,000 worth of parts, you got $5,000 in labor.
Wow. Yeah.
We
All right.
can't work on these things.
All right.
But
So is but what we're putting in is less, get back to what Eric was saying, so we're putting in less than we actually spent last year. Is there a reason to believe that we'll be paying less this year?
it's a crapshoot. We could take the grader up the road, then all of a sudden the motor blows in it.
Right, right.
So do you decide to replace it, or do you put $40,000 into a grader?
So we still have the toolkit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it
We
just
do,
hasn't worked
but
out
I
much
put
last
it in the schedule to
Right.
replace it after.
I
next July.
talked to other towns, Morrisville has a tool cat, and they just replaced theirs. And they replace theirs every 5 years, and they basically said, once the hydraulic hoses and stuff on them start to blow, get rid of it,
Yeah.
because everything just so rotted.
And ours is a 2016, so it's going on 5 years old, and I put it on a regular 5-year schedule, starting in the new equipment schedule. So after July 1st, when we're in this budget, it can get replaced. It's gonna get through one more winter, but yeah.
Tom knows more of this than I do, but one of the things I thought about a little bit was, can we do a lease arrangement? I don't know if that's something that's an option or not.
Well, we talked about it before we got the toolkit, but it didn't seem like it made any
You
sense.
got the numbers, I don't know where the numbers, if they bear out or not. What I was thinking about on that was the advantage of, if we have a problem with it, can they give us a loaner so we're not, out that piece of equipment? But Tom knows more about this than I do, as I said. We'd evaluate that when we're ready to do the replacement, right?
Yeah.
So that's what the bottom line is, 1.36, so not too bad. Any questions on this for right now?
I had a couple other questions,
Yeah.
or maybe just one. Ditch stone, looks like their last actual was 17,000.
Grant, we had big grant reimbursement on that, grant and aid. We used, we did
Okay.
Hardwick Farms, and,
Oh, right.
so I think we are over, but I think around 5,000 to 7,000 of that get reimbursed with grant and aid. So we were slightly over, probably around 10 or 11, but, yeah, we felt okay leaving it at 8. They did a lot of work this year. I mean, you always need the ditch stone, but they did a lot this year, so, hopefully we'll be fine for next year. And
So, sorry, not to get too far in the weeds, but in the case of ditch stone, where we're getting the reimbursement grant, must be?
Yep.
So we pull out the full 17,856 out of our capital, and then we get reimbursed.
Not capital, out of our regular budget, yeah, and then we just see the revenue on the revenue side.
Oh, right, okay, right,
You don't need
we're in a regular
expense.
budget.
Yep.
Sorry, never mind. Yep, carry on. No more questions.
Okay, so move on to police department?
Yeah.
Okay,
I missed that.
so, let's make this bigger. Gotta get over here. Okay, so, all right, so, let's see. I want to talk about, so health insurance, we basically have people that aren't on town insurance or single plans versus family plans. So in the past, we didn't know like who we would hire, so we would budget for a family plan. We actually have a lot of single plans. That's what it boils down to. So it's status of plans, and maybe people don't take the insurance. That's why that's lower. Same thing with your dental, vision, life, disability.
With the part-time officers, our last actual was $790, and this year is $10,000.
And we're lowering that. I talked to Aaron about that. Aaron, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, we didn't even have a part-time officer for very long during that time period, so we had to utilize, we were paying overtime.
Okay.
So we had to utilize regular officers for overtime because we didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
Previously, Scott, our dispatcher, had been working, as a part-time officer, but took the job as dispatcher.
Okay.
So he became a full-time employee. So we have since, hired, we actually, we have one right now, part-time officer.
Okay.
But we try to utilize, there's certain contractual issues where, open shifts, et cetera, where I don't have control over that.
Yeah.
Things I do have control over, I try to utilize a part-time officer for things that I can assign them to.
Okay.
To try to obviously save some money there as well.
So we should look at overtime and part-time together kind of when we're looking at this. Like is that kind of what you're saying? So in 1920 when overtime was sort of high and part-time was low, but then you want to.
Right.
Yeah, so you're going to have one or the other.
Basically, you're going to have either high overtime or.
So if we spend more on part-time officers, then we expect the overtime to go down, or if we don't have part-time officers, then overtime's going up.
Right, and
Okay.
it's hard to, because it's contractual, a lot of those shifts are contractual.
Yeah,
so, it's hard to budget for part-time officers as well, because it depends on how much ability I have to, control that. So.
Yep, got it.
So, Aaron, is that also the increase, so is the increase in base payroll, is that new people, is that raises for current people, or is that kind of making sure that you're covered?
It's a combination of both, because we have not had 8 full officers, so this is based on like a full staff.
Okay, great.
And, any negotiate, it doesn't mean that they got a 6% increase, that's not what that means, it's just, you take your whole entire staff, so now we actually have 8 officers, so, that's all.
We are fully staffed now.
And we haven't been in quite a while, so,
You just jinxed it.
I know.
Thanks, all.
And then if that's going up, then why is workers' comp going down so much from last year?
Workers' comp is, because our actual was only 36. We budgeted in 21 for 42, but knowing that we were at 36, and I got a memo, once again, our insurances are gonna be going down, amen.
Great.
So we have
That's a good problem.
We've just seen, other than unemployment's going up, but all the others, we're probably gonna see another decrease, so that's why we're budgeting that way.
Doesn't some of that, Casey, reflect on payouts and?
Oh, yeah,
whether
claims,
there's been any injuries and
unemployment, like,
everything,
because it's a pool, and unemployment, not us personally, the town of Hardwick, but the unemployment pool that the LCT has had a lot of claims, so that's gonna go up, but,
You mean on the workers' comp or on unemployment?
oh, workers' comp
I was
is
talking
not.
about workers' comp.
Workers' comp is, yes, that would also be claims related, yes. And again, because it's a pool, it wouldn't necessarily be just claims that the town had or didn't have. It's because it's a pool.
The municipalities have had to, there've been unemployment in some of the municipalities, so that fund has been impacted across the board for unemployment.
Let's
So you feel comfortable taking the health insurance and all that down just because of the plans that you have now in place?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we literally like have each person laid out what they have for a plan, what we can expect for increases. The one thing that can happen is somebody, you know, changes the plan, adds a family member, you know, anything like that can happen, but we don't plan for that. We'll deal with it if that happens. If somebody says, oh, I want to get on your insurance now, or I had a child, I'm getting married, whatever it may be, we'll just deal with that. We basically do it based on what they have now. Gasoline I lowered a little just because prices have been lower. And as Aaron and I talked about the 9,000, you have COVID built in there, so we figure there were about 3 months when things were way down. So if you factored that in, it probably would have been more like 12. So that's where we derived that.
What about vehicle maintenance? It was last year just an outlier with $3,000 or?
Tire, right, and part of it is we have like, we've got an 18, a 19, and a 20 model. So they're not, the maintenance, now that we've got them on the schedule, other than like tires and oil changes and inspections, we don't have the older cars anymore, so the vehicle maintenance
if our
has been better.
last actual was 3,000, why are we budgeting 6,500?
Because we know that we have to get several sets of winter tires for some of the newer vehicles, which are usually like that. Well, what are they?
But you have a separate line item for tires, though, Casey.
No, we don't.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, we do. Oh, okay. I don't know. I lowered it to 65, but I mean, we could look at lowering it more.
I just wonder, it just, you know, I generally, like, unless there's a reason not to, I think it's nice to align the budget to something close to the actual.
I would look at, and I don't have the numbers, probably Casey doesn't either, but I would look at the year prior and see what it was, what the actual was the year prior.
Yeah, maybe
that seems
varies.
like a really low number.
Yeah, it seems low.
Of maintenance.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't necessarily go by that year, but
Yep.
I don't know if it's possible before we decided to lower it, to look at maybe a year or two prior to that, because that seems like a really low year. I do know that the two marked primary cruisers, both have 125,000 mile warranty on them, and some of the repairs that have been done have been covered under warranty, so that did help some, so we paid for it up front.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work out that way.
Right.
Sometimes your warranties are good, sometimes they're not, and it's a crapshoot as to whether it's gonna cover anything, so it happened to. I know last year, a couple of different times that were $1,500 repairs, but.
6244 in the year prior on actual.
Oh, okay.
And I'm thinking it was probably the year prior was even similar to that, or maybe even a little more, so.
Well, so I mean, we could do something like 5,500 maybe.
Well, I'm just thinking we're probably right where we are. If, you know, looking back, it's okay to have an odd year, in my opinion, and not have to spend as much money, but that wouldn't be the norm. And if you look at a pattern, I don't think that's the norm, so I think you're about right where you are.
I'm just gonna highlight it for now as something, because if we get to the point of having to make small cuts here and there to get it down, that might be somewhere we can cut. That's, I guess, I'll just highlight it for now.
Kaylee?
without
Casey, would it
changing
be too much of a pain to do that for, so I'm just wondering about, to Aaron's point, how last year was really unusual, especially with the shutdown, so like heating use is probably off majorly, and like there were cost savings just from people working from home or whatever. We had a really unusual 2020, and hopefully we don't have that again. But is it possible for you to put in last year as well when we're looking at this? I know I can just to see, because it's just the same thing with
Maybe
gas.
we just provide the report.
I can just look at the report. Maybe we look at it together, so if there are questions,
Yeah.
we just bring it to I'll just bring the report to the next one.
And some, you know, some of the maintenance too may have been, because we know all of this last year has been a nightmare for everybody, so because there was less gas spent. And we were on level 2 for several months, which was a phone call unless it was, required an emergency response of an officer, as well as every other department in the state, including state police. So the cars weren't moving.
Right.
So you were saving on fuel, because probably, I'm guessing, saving on maintenance at the same time, because you're not, so. Before I changed too much, I wouldn't necessarily look at the current year's totals or anything, but, I don't know.
So
Just a thought.
I have just a kind of I have a question about training and education. Why do we have separate, what's the difference between training and education?
So training is our actual training that we have to do annually. Each officer has to have a minimum of 30 hours annually. That's the training budget. The education budget is its contractual, that if, I don't remember the exact language, but essentially we could pay for higher education expenses.
If they do things that are
Taking
related to the
classes,
field
going
or
to
whatever.
seminars.
So we've always thrown in
Okay.
something, so it was there.
Yeah.
Because it is a contractual item.
Okay, got it. And then for training, it looks like we've been funding it maybe higher than,
I gotta find it.
so last year, last year was 1,384, the year before was 2,282.
Yes, we bumped it up to 5 the last couple of years, and Casey asked me about it for this coming year, and I really feel strongly it probably should stay up at the 5. We're expecting a lot of changes coming up and a lot of additional training going on. It depends, and some years, training is relatively expensive. We try to utilize a lot of online stuff that we can. Some years, we have the ability to do some trainings. This year, for example, this current year we're in, as I said, we didn't have a firearms instructor. We had to send somebody for that. We tried to send somebody as a field training officer because we didn't have anybody certified in that. One of the classes that I had spoke about, that's a $300-something 2-day class coming up. So some years you don't have the opportunity to spend a lot of money. Some years, I say opportunity, it's not really like we want to, but in some years you have more. So we have moved up the training budget. And also we had increases. They increased by 5 hours. We had to have 25 hours of training. Each officer was required to have 25 hours of training. They increased that by 5 hours. So now you have
30.
9 to 10 officers that just increased 5 more hours of training. So we increased the budget, to reflect some of that as well over the last couple of years.
Okay. All right.
I just wonder, what is the investigation expense? I'm just curious, what kind of things go into that?
There's a few different things that go into that. I'm trying to think how to explain some of what that is without going into it too heavily.
Costs associated with investigating cases.
Yeah.
Well, I figured that, but I'm just curious, like, do you have a couple examples that?
Yeah, not really like appropriate, I mean, they're legitimate, but it's not really appropriate to discuss probably.
Because of the
Confidentiality and, yeah.
Oh. So it has to do with specific cases?
Generally, yeah.
So it's not generic things like blood tests or alcohol tests or whatever for, okay.
No. There are some things that fall under that maybe, somewhat generic, but no, that is generally used for, specific cases.
So we are, Aaron and I are in discussions with Greensboro contacts in regards to the next round of the police service contract with Greensboro. So we have to try to start working with them about what we see our base number being this next fiscal year. We know it's not finalized, but we're probably going to be noting, look, this is what we have started our discussion at, I know this is not the final number, but, since we're in negotiations, I gotta have some base to be working with, for the discussions with Greensboro. So just, that's how I'll say it.
Yep. It's good.
So, okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Are we ready to move on from budgets?
For tonight, yeah.
Thanks, Casey.
Thanks, Casey.
All right, next is item 5, select board to sign off on fiscal year 2020 audit engagement letter with Sullivan Powers and Company. And we had in our packet the,
It's just a technicality because obviously they already were starting work on it, but they need you guys to approve and sign off.
do we have a motion?
There's a motion that we approve the select board sign up on the FY 2020 audit engagement letter with Sullivan Powers and Co. PC. Second.
Any discussion on that? It's within the amount we budgeted for.
Right about, yes,
Yeah.
it's $500 more than last year, so it's
Yeah.
right there.
Yep,
So I'm just gonna pass that around if you guys can sign.
it's 27,000 or something.
Oh,
So any more discussion on that? All in favor of signing the contract with Sullivan and Powers, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Next is item 6, select board to discuss the traffic light petition from residents. I was impressed by just the sheer number of people who signed a petition for a traffic light. I think it definitely brings to our attention that it's an issue that people care about. So I guess I'm not sure what our next step should be in light of that. I feel like we ought to have some input from some traffic experts because I guess while it was a petition for us to fund a traffic light there, I'm not sure that that's necessarily the best solution to make that a safer intersection, but I think that maybe the underlying request is that we want a safer intersection.
Was it included in that traffic study thing that we had years ago that we looked at the pedestrian and safety thing, the MBDA study?
I'm
I
sure
thought
if it was
that
in the
corner
older
was
study from
included.
about 10 years back, Sherry. I
Yeah,
don't recall.
but that's most recent.
I mean, it is horrible visibility there, there's no question. When you come down that hill, you can't see if traffic's coming into town from the right.
So I did, Eric, I got some feedback today. I'm sorry I wasn't able to provide this to the select board earlier. It came through this afternoon. I did reach out to V-Trans officials just to, share with them. I reached out to them last week and I finally got some feedback here today just about the petition, about the situation. You want me to just offer a few things they noted?
Yeah.
So, I talked to our district administrator, Shauna Clifford also touched this. She regularly provides support to us. Tom's working with her on an ongoing basis, but got to the district administrator and one of the questions I had, this is inside of the town control, but the V-Trans officials did relay that it's an area of joint jurisdiction, so just a couple of highlights here. You'd have to, however you go forward, you'd have to make sure you're meeting the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Device Standards in regards to, and don't ask me to describe this, it's not my area of expertise, but it says warrants are volumetric and not subject to much interpretation. I think what this meant in a nutshell when I talked to the individual today was there's certain steps that would have to be just validated that our signage is correct. So as an example, there's a flashing amber light there now if you're coming in, heading eastbound on 15, you come around the corner, the hotel's on your right. You come up to the corner, at that point you should be at a 25 mile per hour speed and hanging right there you've got the flashing yellow. So folks, main point there is folks coming into that area should be at 25. There's other things that could be taken as steps before you jump right to, okay, we would install a traffic light at this location. That's the point that I kind of got from the individuals today. So a couple of other pieces of information. I did request the crash data, and the technician for V-Trans noted for the last 5-year period, there's been 4 reportable crashes in the vicinity. It's mile marker 3.57 is the detail. Police reports show that none of the crashes were actually related to the Glenside Avenue intersection. So back to the basis of the petition, it was folks who come down Glenside and are concerned with the sight lines when they have to take a left-hand turn. And what the crash data is showing that majority of the incidents there, just 4 again over a 5-year period, were related to the Jiffy Mart Hayes service station, not folks coming off Glenside. So the other thing they look at with the traffic data and just trying to make a determination, again, this they are saying is an area of joint jurisdiction. What they would say is they want to look at the traffic count data on Route 15 and then the traffic count data on Glenside Avenue. There is a significant difference there, and there's a high volume on the Route 15 traffic flow. And in a nutshell, what the V-Trans officials have advised is check in with Doug Morton with NVDA, he's our regional traffic planning support individual, and have him just evaluate, okay, have you done the mutual uniform traffic control devising and signage and everything right as a next step. That was his recommendation, the V-Trans official. So there's just a little bit.
That sounds logical.
That's kind of what we got for feedback. And again, I didn't have time to share this with the board. I just got it at 1:19 today.
And one, I don't think you saw this email, but one of the people in the email chain, Sean After, said that when you're coming in right there by Glenside, there was this orange sign with like a arrow that kind of showed like a blind that there was a street there, but that sign is gone. It's missing apparently. I don't have it up, but it was like right here, and it's this yellow sign, and they said that it used to be there, but it's not there anymore. Do you know what happened to that, Tom? It's gone, I guess, that indicator that it's like a blind corner with a street coming out. And
So there's an example of just making sure, all right, that sign's no longer there.
Not that people do something.
Kid black, or if somebody whacked it with a car or something, who knows, right? So we would evaluate, all right, let's get it reestablished, just to help and inform the people inbound. You got a street on your left-hand side, so, just be advised, right?
So next step is you'll consult with Doug Morton and VDA.
That's the select board's
People are good
prerogative,
with that
that was the
as a next
recommendation of
step.
V-Trans.
Yeah.
Yeah, in some ways, it seems like signage there is sort of a Band-Aid on a bigger problem. It seems like the sightline is really the problem.
Yeah, what really needs to, there needs to be a very large bulldozer that comes in and takes out that hill. That's what needs to happen.
Or straightens out.
Or both.
Careful who you're talking to
You can
over
see.
there.
Yeah.
What?
So I don't know.
Tom, you're talking with Tom listening.
I know, that's why. Because you never know when you might wake up in the morning, it's been done.
So
Doug, you have a question?
How many sign positions?
58.
66.
Oh, 66?
Yeah, I count 66.
Highway 66.
Great.
All right. Yeah, it was, good, it's a very strong showing that people are concerned, and it's like, you cannot see very well when you come down Glenside.
No.
So just to recap, so are we adding this to the next agenda, Sean, or just to a future agenda after you connect with Doug Morton? Is that?
It's hard to predict what Doug's
Okay.
response is gonna be, that's all I'm gonna say right now.
So he's a very hard man to get hold of.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we did get him into the office to meet with us once, about a year ago. So be nice to talk to him again, yeah.
No.
So when you talk to me, you'll just be talking about signage, or will it be like the whole intersection, including the sightline?
I'll read back if I can find it quickly. Recommend reach out to Regional Planning Commission for scoping assistance on how you actually, just to ensure we are meeting the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Device procedures and processes. So it's everything having to do with, the acronym is MUTCD standards.
And then confirm with him, I suppose, what that last traffic study said about that intersection, because it said something, I just don't know
I
what
think
it
I have
was.
that in the file, so I can double
Yeah.
check that.
I mean, if they had a recommendation at that point, then, maybe we revisit
Right.
that.
Right.
The, so this isn't lost, though, they're, the state, they're kind of, what I'm seeing in the correspondence that I got here today is, there's an acronym I have to get information on, but one of the things they're talking about here is just given the traffic volume and the fact that it's a area of joint jurisdiction, what I'm kind of reading in this is it would probably be pretty challenging to have a traffic light there in the future. That shouldn't be taken to mean it can't be done, but it seems there's some pretty significant hurdles. The next step, of course, is let's make sure we've got it signed and whatever, marked, and is the amber light the right one, and everything that goes along with that as a next step.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So I'll bump Doug and we'll try to get him on the hook. I can't say if it's gonna be the next meeting or one, after that. I'll do my best to keep on top of getting him in the game here.
Yeah, because because it's an area of joint jurisdiction, then he should also be able to help us figure out whether or not V-Trans helps us pay for it, whatever we need to do, if there's something that we can do.
Yeah. The V-Trans folks were very helpful, so Shauna was really good, and the district administrator were really good about helping get us this information, so I appreciate their help on this.
Bet they didn't do something, they dump rocks over the bank.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, if we were lucky that bank slid in that area, because we would have been paying for it.
Yeah, right. All right, so Sean's gonna follow up and then we'll, continue the discussion in future meetings. That's basically what's gonna happen. Any select board reports? New business? Old business? Adjourn. It's only 9:30.
Oh, jeez. No, it's 10:30.